Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and the Kree Skrull Wars. Guys, this is an incredible bunch of comic books that's come out. We're going to be talking about all of them and a whole bunch of other ones too. It's insane. There's a whole spotlight on story on the Kree Skrull Wars. It's funny. There are a lot of people who've never heard of these comic books, and a whole bunch who haven't even read them. If they have heard of them, they just kind of theoretically, yeah, that stuff happened. Let me tell you how important the Kree Skrull Wars were, and still are, in fact. If the Kree Skrull War stories are a rock thrown into the middle of a lake, 85% of what's happening in comic books, even to this day in 2023, are ripples of the Kree Skrull War, of that rock tossed in the middle. Some things aren't affected. Some parts of the lake on the shores around it don't get affected by those ripples, but most things are. That's how important this is, guys. I'm also not going to be putting ads in this video, at least until like mid-July, maybe, because this is actually a paid sponsor in this. So twice I will be slowing down the video a little bit because there's a lot of action. I'm going to give you guys a chance to take a breath, right? Take a drink of water and actually listen to a new comic book Kickstarter that's coming out pretty soon. Because, yeah, it's actually awesome. It's worth it. I was very happy to take this sponsor on. Anyway, yeah, fan of the channel for a while. And I like and I like giving back and making sure that people get onto new comic books. So when that comes on, don't skip ahead. Actually pay attention because, yeah, I'm purposefully letting go of the ads just for this one. That was my decision, my call. Guys, let's talk about this comic book series. So we're actually going way back in the time machine, the Wayback Machine. Cover date for this first issue number 89 of the first volume of the Avengers. That's right, pre-hundreds. Double digits, baby. June 1991 is this first issue that had come out. Now, these stories, the Kree Skrull War, actually go from issue number 89 to issue number 97. Get really close, I know, right? To that big 100. Anyway, a lot of issues in here. Plus, as most of these older comics go, most of these stories come from someplace else. In fact, the most previous run-in of the Avengers were actually not in the previous issue of the Avengers. The previous issue of Avengers actually was a story that involved the Incredible Hulk, and I think it was issue number 140 that that story got concluded in. So the Avengers were most recently in Incredible Hulk. Now they're back here and they're doing their own thing and whatnot. The roster of the Avengers right now, very small. You got Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and the Vision. There are a couple of outside Avengers that are kind of in but not in. They're still they're inactive, even though they're still members of the Avengers roster. Some of the comic books that were actually coming out at around the same time it was actually issue number 140 of the Hulk. I got it right here. That's why. So issue number 140 of the Incredible Hulk came out this month. So did Thor. Issue number 189. Astonishing Tales with Kazar and Doctor Doom. That's Astonishing Tales issue number 6. Captain America and the Falcon. The title was actually, boom, put on there. That's issue number 138. Daredevil, Man Without Fear, issue number 77. Really good issue, really important issue. Spider-Man was in it. Fantastic Four, issue number 111. All of the issues of the Fantastic Four, for the most part, are important, at least back in the day. That was the mothership. That was the flagship of Mar-vell. They always had to keep it interesting. And then the X-Men, issue number 70 was out. The X-Men at the time, guys, was a very boring comic book for all intents and purposes. It wasn't deathly boring, but yeah, it was fairly boring at the time. Anyway, so the like I said, the members of the Avengers that were actually in the Avengers at the time here is Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Vision. Now the truth is, Clint Barton is also one of the Avengers that was in here at the time. However, he is not Hawkeye in this. And going way back in the time machine to issue number 63, Hawkeye was on a ship with Black Panthers, actually one of Black Panther's ships, and it went down and his bow got broken. It was a very special bow, no joke. It was a specialty bow. So that thing snapped, and he wasn't able to get it repaired anytime soon. And he wasn't just going to replace it with some willy-nilly random bow, right? So he took some of the leftover doses of the PIM particle formula. So he was the new Goliath at this point. That was actually his name. This was way back in issue number 63. He did that, and he's still at this time Goliath. So he's just not doing a whole lot in this particular issue. Next issue, though, he's coming in. So anyway, that was the Avengers roster at the time. Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man are going to appear in this very soon, in fact. But for now, they are kind of inactive members at the time. Okay. Also, Hank Pym, also an inactive member at this time. Wasp also. Anyway, so writers for this story, the writer period for all of these stories and most of the stories that we're going to be covering is actually Roy Thomas, one of the most important people in Marvel Comics, to say the very least, if not comic books in general. But he made such a huge mark in comics. Sal Buscema is the penciler for most of these stories. Neil Adams winds up taking over for a couple of issues and still helps with a couple more. The inker in this particular issue is Sam Granger. The letterer in this particular issue is Sam Rosen. Stan Lee is the editor for all of these issues, for all of Mar-vell at the time. He's the senior editor. However, the colorists were not credited at this particular moment in time. It's one of those weird things. Stan Lee was the first person to say that inkers and letterers should also be mentioned in this stuff because it was a hard job and they did do a whole lot of the work also. Some of the people who did pencils, they just did the general layouts really quick. And the inker is the one who did the bulk of the work. So it was very interesting that he did that. In fact, it used to be a point where nobody really gave credit to the writers, right? Not nobody, but almost nobody. In fact, certain companies like Fox Syndicated Comics and Charlton Comics, if I remember correctly, and several others, like Dell Comics, I don't think gave any credits to anybody. The Walt Disney Comics didn't give any credit to anybody. But Fox Syndicated and Charlton, they would usually use a general pseudonym for every or most of the stories, and that pseudonym was actually used by multiple writers, like sometimes 10, 15 writers, right? And same thing with the artists also, because they didn't want to give the rights away to people. So Stan Lee was really good to people, and he started, hey, do all this stuff. But he didn't do the colorists at the time. He didn't see them apparently as valuable or whatever. Just honestly, it is what it is. I know, shameful to think about that nowadays, but hey, maybe 60 years in the future, people will start giving credit to the people who inspect to make sure that the staples are in and straight on the spine of comic books, and we'll wonder how come 60 years ago nobody ever gave credit to them. So anyway, let's get talking about the story, because it's actually really good. Most of these stories are inspired by other works, sometimes short films or longer films, mostly sci-fi, and books that are sci-fi. This first issue is called The Only Good Alien, indicating, and it's on the front of the cover, the only good alien is a dead alien. You see Captain Mar-vell, Captain Mar-vell really, but his real name is Mar-vell. That's his Kree name. He's a man of the Kree. He's always commented as such. He's running and he sees these three Avengers, Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Vision chasing after him. Oh, kind of important. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are still mutants in this. However, this Kree Skrull Wars gives you some kind of a reason to believe that maybe, just maybe, they are in fact actually Inhumans. We'll get to that, and I'll explain that later when we get to that issue. But for now, here's Captain Mar-vell trying to run from these three guys, and he's wearing a trench coat. You're like, what the freaking heck is going on, dude? Anyway, rips off the trench coat, and he faces these guys. This guy... Guys, I know a lot of you guys aren't on Captain Mar-vell, the original for Marvel Comics, Captain Mar-vell. This guy was amazing. And if you go back and read some of these old stories, they are absurdly good. This guy is so awesome. He just straight up, here comes Quicksilver, clocks this dude with a hard left, just knocks him out like Quicksilver, who can run at Mach 1. Right? Like subsonic speeds in this particular case. Wow. Just cold knocks him out. See some of the other Avengers coming by. He jumps after, what's his name? Vision. But Vision does that, I'm going to phase out of the way. Instead of dodging, he's just He's like, I'm cool. I'm not going to move. I'm just going to move my molecules, spread them out a little bit, right? Um, and Vision's kind of like, you can't handle, you can't touch this. Do. No, he's an android, right? Synthesoid. He's got a beatbox in him, so he's doing the whole MC Hammer thing. But that's when Mar-vell reveals, actually, I kind of wanted you to do this. So I'm going to hit you with my photonic uni beam, which is a part of my negabands. And boom, just while he's, Vision takes a couple of moments to actually bring his molecules back together again, right? Easy to split them, not so easy to bring them back. It takes a couple of seconds, 4, 5, 6 seconds, right? To bring everybody back. One round, you're playing the Marvel face rip stuff. I got your back. So anyway, while he's still phased and going back together, hits him with a photonic uni beam. That doesn't actually mean anything. It's just comic book for gotcha, bitch. Anyway, so Scarlet Witch comes out and she starts trying to do the burning hand spell on him, but with her hex powers, and he's just like, nah, I'm out, peace, and he's just, leaps out of the way. Guys, it's important to understand, Mar-vell can't fly. All right, he cannot fly. Later on, he'll be able to fly, but for right now, Mar-vell can't fly. So he can, as a man of the Kree, he comes from a place where there's like 20 to the Kree, like Hala and whatever. I don't remember if he actually comes from Hala itself, but he comes from one of the many Kree-dominated planets in Kree space, which is in the larger Magellanic Cloud. The Andromeda galaxy is actually where the Skrulls come from, and then here's Earth, and then here's the Greater Magellanic Cloud, and that's where the Kree are from. So Earth is right in between, and that's important for the purposes of this story. Anyway, so he comes from a place where it's 20 times the gravity of Earth, so he's able to easily leap and bound and super strong, or so it seems, because of all of this stuff, because gravity just doesn't affect him anywhere near as much as it does the rest of us. He grew up in much rougher conditions. Anyway, I'm surprised he's not shorter. The guys from Phantasm, those little dwarfs. Anyway, so that's going to come up several times in these stories, that he cannot actually fly. He's just leaping out of the way. So he jumps up, gets out of the way, winds up getting hit by some kind of a phaser blaster thing, and it's actually Rick Jones. And Rick is feeling like crap because he shot him. He's like, I betrayed him and whatnot. If you guys were reading or if you decide to go back and read the Captain Marvel stories way back during around this time, the 1971 and before and somewhat after, Mar-vell was, there were really interesting stories. And at one point, not too many, I think around issue number 16, this stops at around issue 22, if I remember correctly. I can't remember exactly. But anyway, he around issue 16 is when he gets this new costume. Instead of that green and white costume, he gets this costume that you're seeing now. Anyway, he at some point he winds up getting the negabands also, but Rick Jones winds up getting, all this stuff happens around the same time. Rick Jones winds up becoming fused with him. He's wearing the negabands. Can't really do anything with them, but he's wearing them. And he will raise his hands over his head and then clank the bracelets together, and then he'll switch places with Mar-vell for about 3 hours. He could do that like once a day or so, This was fairly important because Captain America just rejected him as his sidekick. He'd been Bucky for a little while, and he was feeling bad about it. It was actually because if you go back and read the Captain America comic books, actually Rick Jones was reporting to Captain America, but Captain America and the Red Skull actually switched bodies for a little while. So as Captain America, the Red Skull was like, I don't like you anymore. I reject you. You suck. You're the worst Bucky ever. Worse than the original Bucky. And he died. Anyway, so we thought. Brubaker. So that was it. And so then he came across Mar-vell and was like, yeah, I'm happy to help, bud. Let's go, Marv. So Rick Jones would walk around on Earth, and Mar-vell would actually be trapped in the negative zone. And then once a day he can clank, and then Mar-vell would have up to 3 hours to do whatever he wanted to do before he wasn't able to be there on Earth anymore. Here you find out one of the reasons why, the main reason why, is because he was built up with all this nega energy in him. It's a kind of radiation, and it's actually killing him. More than that, it's actually going to make him explode. So he's not just going to kill himself. He's going to kill a lot of people. He's going to take out a whole lot of fools with him, and potentially like half the planet even. Like, who knows? It's negative energy, which means it's antimatter, right? So nobody knows how bad this thing could be. It could be a poof. It could be a it could be a great reset. We need a new planet here. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, they were hunting him so that they could actually help him because he was losing his crap. They brought him to these scientists, and they were not actually making Adam Warlock. Those are different scientists. Go read the Fantastic Four and Thor for that, the Beehive. But in this particular case, Mar-vell gets placed in this machine, and they're trying to remove the energy from him, the negative energy from him. Not quite going to work out the way that they wanted to. But anyway, they give a quick little recap about what had happened here, because the story just starts with him being hunted, and that wasn't happening in the previous issue. So Mar-vell is able to telepathically communicate with Rick Jones, even when he's stuck in the negative zone. And mind you, they would switch places when the clank thing, right? They would switch places. So Rick Jones would be in the negative zone, but he was in an area where he didn't have to worry about breathing, whatever. And both of them were in a kind of invisibility cloaked state. They were very, tight and just kind of stuck like this or whatever. Couldn't do a whole lot of moving, right? Couldn't move a whole lot. But that was good because the negative zone is a really dangerous place. There's this guy called Annihilus in there, and probably the most dangerous creature out there who's not an actual cosmic entity, right? This guy he's tougher than nails, way tougher than nails. And he doesn't get the love and respect that he should get nowadays. But back then, he was feared beyond all belief. He actually looked like something that you should be terrified of. So Rick would be stuck in the negative zone for up to 3 hours, just kind of, but cloaked. Anyway, he never really felt particularly scared. It was just the idea that he hated being out there in this empty void, and Mar-vell just dealt with it. Anyway, so Mar-vell kind of telepathically communicates with him. He's like, Rick, I just saw this incredible thing. And I know you're doing some stuff right now. You're trying to make it big, but we can actually be not together. Like, I can actually escape from the negative zone if you help me out. And then we could just be pals, and I don't have to, worry about sending you here anymore to be a superhero, right? He's like, oh, anything that'll make it so I don't have to do this stuff anymore. Sure, that'd be great, because, the bands are kind of stuck to him. Anyhow, so Mar-vell starts relaying the idea. I just saw this guy. Have you seen this guy? He puts the mental image of Reed Richards in there. Of course, Mar-vell's not going to know who he is, but Rick, of course, everybody knows who. Every Earthling knows who Reed Richards is. He's the most famous freaking guy ever. It was like, I saw this guy, and he was just, this Reed Richards guy, and he was just out there, and I'm watching him like I can't really do anything to help him out. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And a whole bunch of things are happening, and all of a sudden, like, Annihilus is there, and he's about to kill him. Like, this poor guy's about to get killed. You know what I'm saying? He's about to get capped. All of a sudden, there's like 10,000 of this one guy, this Reed Richards guy, and I didn't understand it. And I'm watching, and he starts moving to this one particular place that I couldn't tell what he was doing. And then I come to realize he disappears, and he actually is able to leave the negative zone. I'm like, what the heck's happening? So I started trying to move towards it, but I couldn't get there in time. I couldn't get anywhere near there in time. There's just nothing I could do. So I'm thinking, like, if we could do something, if you can get me to where this Reed Richards is, maybe he can help me out, and then we could, switch places, and then I can actually pull you out. Because it would be like, super simple that way. We can find a way. It's like, listen, anything to help you out, bud. So he says, let's do it. Boogie. So they go off, or he goes off by himself, Rick Jones. He gets to the Baxter Building. He's like, okay, Marv, this is where it's at. You ready? Bang, let's go. So Mar-vell's trying to figure out how to get in there. And security guard's like, fool. So he's like, all right, fine. So he starts trying to climb the sides of the Baxter Building. Because mind you, he can't fly. So anyway, climbs all the way to the top where he can, and he rips open the side of the freaking awesome art, man. I am loving the art way back in the day. rips apart these doors. Now, we just saw it recently when I did a spotlight and story for Monica Rambeau. The Fantastic Four will respond if the Avengers build of the Avengers mansion is attacked or broken into, and vice versa. We see that here also because there's a break-in. The Fantastic Four aren't around. They just had this big shindig going on, so they went on vacation. Go read the Fantastic Four issues for more of that. Here, the Vision gets the call. He doesn't really have to sleep that much. He's got this gem that allows solar power to come in, and that's how he regenerates all the time. Anyway, so Quicksilver is playing chess or Parcheesi or whatever the hell he's playing with, and Scarlet Witch is lying in bed looking, how you doing, and reading a book, because how you doing? Anyway, so they're just like, hey, Avengers Building's been taken. Let's go and help some people out, you know? So they go and try and solve the situation, but Mar-vell's gotten into the building. He's looking over and he's like, hey, he sees Rick on the big, negative zone viewer. He's figuring out how this stuff works. I know that Reed Richards is ridiculously smart beyond all sorts of belief, but the Kree are an extremely advanced civilization. So, and Mar-vell's a very smart individual. So I'm not saying that he can necessarily build everything that Reed builds, but he is ridiculously smart. He's able to build an Omniwave projector. More on that later, twice. But in this particular case, he's able to at least figure out the things that Reed can do. And he's able to figure out how to bring up the view screen and open up the doors and get the portal to open up. But he's looking at Rick. He's like, Rick, I'm going to pull you in. You're ready? He's like, yeah, dude, but I need you to hurry up, man, because I know this thing is only going to be over a while, but it felt like there were some eyes on me, dude. He's like, what are you talking about? That's impossible. You're Avengers. He's like, no, dude. No, I actually felt like somebody was watching me. So please hurry up, okay? All of a sudden, the Avengers show up. Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and Vision. And he's like, no, not now. Oh, crap, shoot. So he's like, okay, listen, Rick, jump now. So he, boom, pulls the thing. So he jumps. He's like, listen, man, I really wasn't alone when I came through. Something else was there. I could feel it. You turn around. There's Annihilus. Guys, I don't know, man. Maybe y'all been desensitized to some stuff. I don't know. But these pictures were meant to be terrifying. And they worked. When I was a little kid and I was reading this stuff, I was like, holy crap. Annihilus actually got into the prime material plane, the matter universe. Holy crap. He escaped the negative zone. That was freaky. To me, that was particularly freaky. So yeah, he comes in and everybody's trying to go after him and he's brushing these people off like they're nothing. Mar-vell doesn't actually try to fight him. He's got his own thing he's got to do. Vision just kind of stands there and he's like, all right, guys, reverse the thing. So they reverse it. Rick, whatever, they go and reverse it and he starts getting sucked in. Everybody else scatters, but Vision just stays there. Annihilus is like, oh, well, if you're here, I'm going to grab onto you. They're going to have to let you go. Otherwise, you're coming in with me. Things I will do to you are illegal in at least 3 of your countries. I promise you that. The Vision goes into his full mass mode, right? Or at least close to it. He can barely move, if at all. And Annihilus is like, oh, crap. Well, this is interesting. He's like, oh, shoot. I see what you're about to do. It's too late for him, though. Vision goes immaterial like that. Nothing for Annihilus to hold on to. His fingers slip right through molecules without bonds to them, and he goes right back into the freaking negative zone. Wow, that was freaky. To me, that was freaky. While they were doing that, Mar-vell, he doesn't come from the nicest neighborhood, so he carjacks the Quinjet. He escapes. Fortunately, they didn't do a whole lot to refill the jet beforehand, so he starts running out of fuel over the Everglades of Florida. He got pretty far. I mean, come on. But Quinjets are fast, so it is what it is. Anyway, they realize right away by the radiation Geiger counters, whatever the hell they got there, the Reed Richards stuff machines, that this guy's about to explode. And they're realizing that within 3 hours, that's probably when it's going to happen. which coincides perfectly with how long he can be on Earth. So once it exceeds 3 hours, that's it. There's a good chance of a pop boom. So that's when Vision goes and grabs one of Reed Richards' guns. It's like a stun gun thing, and he hands it to Rick, and he's like, "Come on, guy, all of us, let's go." Mar-vell realizes the ship's going down, so he jumps out of it and just like lands because, again, can't fly. The Avengers show up and they start coming after him, and that's when all this other stuff starts happening. So anyway, they're trying to, with the machine, trying to get the radiation out of them, but the machine that they built didn't have a good enough power source. So Vision volunteers, like, listen, what about the solar energy that I got stored up inside my body, man? Come on, let's go. It's like, yeah, you know what? That might actually work. So they do that, but it almost completely drains Vision. The guy's got not much of a reserve left over. Meanwhile, while all this stuff is happening, the Supreme Intelligence is on Hala, and Ronan the Accuser comes back. I believe this is his second appearance, not comic book but second appearance as a story is concerned. Sentry 459 was activated by the Fantastic Four. Sentry 459 is the sentry that was left by the Kree to watch over a certain part of the Earth, specifically to watch over the Inhumans, their city of Adelan. So this is important because it does come up. The Inhumans are very different from the X-Men in the ideas that while the humans were evolving and whatnot, the Celestials already came down, they looked and they saw, these humans are like, oh, these guys have these guys are really, really young in their infancy. Let's see what happens in the future, but let's do a couple little experiments first. Some of these humans I'm going to turn into the Eternals, which is the max level of what a human is capable of right now at this particular evolutionary stage in their lives. And then they took some of them and they devolved them the max way that they could be devolved, right? Other ways they could be devolved, lesser mutations, mutants, X-Men, Morlocks. So these were called the deviants, and they were powerful in their own right, but they were deviants. And then there's the humans themselves, which they gifted with the ability to have great potential for evolution, depending on what they did, of course. And eventually, if they proved worthy, they would one day become more powerful than the Eternals themselves. So there's that. But when the Kree found out about this planet, they came down there and they were just like, this is the perfect planet to have as a in between to between Kree space and Skrull space, the Andromeda Galaxy. So this would be a good stopping off point. Anybody who's familiar with the Aeneid or anything with Roman and Carthaginian or just Mediterranean Sea history, that Sicily was that place. So Earth is basically Sicily in the galactic scheme of things between the Skrulls and the Kree. Anyway, the Kree came down and they injected 25% of their DNA so they made it so that 25% of the DNA of certain humans would actually be Kree DNA, and they wanted to see what was going to happen with them, and they left Sentry 459 there to watch over them and whatnot. Anyhow, so Sentry 459 was awakened by the Fantastic Four at one point, and they defeated this Sentry. That gave a huge red flag to the Kree because they're like, whoa, things don't just randomly defeat a Sentry. Our Sentries are ridiculously OP. So something's happening on Earth and we got to handle this. All of the other races are, for the most part, smarter and for the most part stronger or have some kind of an ability or whatever that we simply do not have as humans. But the way that Earth balances things with the human population is that certain humans have far accelerated powers. For instance, the Fantastic Four somehow being so much, farther, head and shoulders above everybody else. Tony Stark being not that darn far behind, but far enough behind that, hey. Anyway, people like Stephen Strange, who has the ability to become a Sorcerer Supreme when there's, not too many Sorcerer Supremes in the world. Anyway, so certain human beings have the potential, right? Like that's why a Hulk would actually not just be some gamma irradiated mess, before he dies 10 seconds later. No, he would actually Bruce Banner would actually turn into the Hulk, right? Certain humans are just head and shoulders, leagues above what any other general race could ever hope to be. But there's very few of them. That's the reason why, all this interest in Earth and thought that humans have to be destroyed, man. There's such a wild card, It's also going to be mentioned that the Kree and the Skrull are incapable. Well, the Kree in this book, it's going to mention that they are incapable of actually evolving any further. They're at the max of their evolutionary state, which means that from this point on, they're technically considered a dying race, right? The same thing with the Skrull. There's actually a whole lot more to do with that much later on. I'm not going to get into that now, but I will get into that by the end of this book. I'll tell you why that's the case and why that's the case. Yes, it's actually two different cases. Anyway, so Supreme Intelligence sitting there. Supreme Intelligence is the historic records of all of the greatest minds and leaders of the Kree race that they were able to get together. And they put it in this one computer program, and it became what's called the Supreme Intelligence. So it's all these minds thinking together and trying to do stuff, and they got certain powers and whatever. But anyway, and Ronan shows up. And so the reason why I mentioned Century 459 is because once that was defeated, Ronan came down, and he's like, it's time to lay down some judgment on these humans, because you should not be able to defeat a Century. Almost nobody should be able to defeat a Century. So Ronan shows up. He's a powerhouse like nobody's business, right? Nowadays he gets punked. That wasn't the case back in the day. There was no punking Ronan, the accuser. So he shows up and he decides to take over. And he's mostly portrayed as a madman in this, but a very, very conniving madman. Conniving is not the right word. He's a powerhouse in this, right? He's very smart, but extremely brash. Anyway, he shows up and he's just like, wrong answer, Supreme Intelligence. I'm taking over because I'm what's best for the Kree. So he kind of banishes them, but the Supreme Intelligence, but like in a different room. He puts them in a jail. Anyway, and then he reactivates Century 459. And he's like, we got some business to do. We got to take care of the Earth. So Century 459, the last appearance, I think this was the third appearance, the last appearance was in Captain Mar-vell issue number 2. Captain Mar-vell had just defeated him, and it was a very cool way that he defeated him also. But anyway, because he didn't just, powerhouse him. He didn't just house him. He had to put the work in. So Century 459 was left in Cape Canaveral. It's just called the Cape in here, but the Cape is actually in Kennedy Space Center, which is in Florida and all that good stuff. So they just call it the Cape, but it's Cape Canaveral. Anyway, so like the Meg means the Megalodon. I'm sure you knew that. So this soldier sees was like, I love the art in this. I love the, what they do with this. I love the idea of giant monsters, or robots in this case, crashing through a wall. He's technically considered an android because he does have a sentient mind. But anyway, we're finally on to the next issue. Guys, let's see if we can actually speed this up just a little bit more. There was a lot of backstory to give you guys, but now we're on issue number 90, Avengers Judgment Day. And you see that the Wasp is going to be in this. So this issue is in fact called Judgment Day. Again, incredibly beautiful art on this. The back of the Century walking through this wall that he just crashed through. Stanley editor, Roy Thomas on writing, Sal Buscema on art, Mike Stevens doing the letters. Again, we don't know who the colorists are for any of these. So Century declares, like, listen, my orders, the reason why I've been woken up is to handle Captain Mar-vell. All right, so here's the way it works. They have an Omni-Wave projector, which the Kree, the only thing that the Kree are able to use the Omni-Wave projector for is to send messages all over the universe, at light speed. One of the reasons why the Skrull weren't able to communicate with back home quite so quick when they were on Earth was because they had to use sound or whatever the hell it is that they were using. It wasn't able to go at light speed. It is what it is. Nowadays, things have changed. But back then, that they were consistent with that. The Kree were the only ones that were able to, boom, instantaneous, unless somebody was using psychic projections, which is a different story. But in this case, bang. So the Kree were able to use. Now, what can other people do with the Omniwave projector? Well, that stuff's going to come up later on. In the meantime, the Sentry was awakened and given the orders to go and retrieve Captain Mar-vell. They wanted to take him alive. So actually, he just wanted to kill him. Excuse me. He just wanted to kill him. So everybody's trying to go after the Sentry, and nobody's having a lot of luck with him. Vision seems to be having the most luck with him, but he's trying to go pound for pound against him. But the Sentry's just way too powerful. So he's trying to increase his densities, hoping that he can actually like hold him back enough for the others to move Mar-vell. But it's not going to work. He winds up going so heavy that he falls through the floor, plus the weight of the Sentry falls through the floor. Vision is actually okay, but it's going to take a moment for him to recover. Sentry, he's up in a heartbeat. He gets up and he yoink, he grabs Mar-vell, and then he's like, okay, I just got a new set of orders from Ronan. And he says that I have to activate Plan Annihilus. So I'm not here to kill you now. I'm here to capture you and take you with me. And he teleports away. As he's doing that, Mar-vell's like, what? Plan Annihilus? No, don't use that. Dude, Sentry, please, just kill me now. Just kill me now. Don't do Plan Annihilus. So he remembers some stuff that's going on. What is Plan Annihilus? Stick around, my peeps. We're getting there. So the future Captain Mar-vell shows up. Carol Danvers. She's actually in charge of security here at the Cape. Captain Mar-vell, well, Carol Danvers was never a pushover. Yes, she did have to be damsel-like in certain ways and be rescued by a hero with superpowers, but the dude has superpowers. Eventually, she would get her superpowers through the Omniwave project. No, not the. Oh crap! I can't remember what it was called right now. But anyway, somebody mention it in the comments, please, or I'll put a little poster of it. Right, bang! But that thing, and but she was always tough. She was always tough as nails. Head of security. You don't get that way by accident. Also a pilot. All this stuff. So they give a little bit of a brief history of the Kree. Of the Inhumans, because they're, Sentry 459 is looking over the stuff while mankind was just primitive, fur-covered Neanderthals and other primate-type humans. Adavan was a giant golden city across the sea that all the monkey-type men wanted to destroy. Well, good luck with that. Though at the times that Fantastic Four had to deal with some stuff, the time that's what Captain Mar-vell used to look like. That's what his uniform used to look like. He had to deal with the Super-Skrull at some point. Dealt with the death of Una. Had to deal with Jan Rog, one of the people he had to fight, and the Supreme Intelligence. The meeting with Rick. There's a little bit of a backstory there, so it doesn't leave you completely empty. All the stuff that I told you, boom, they do explain for the most part a lot of that stuff here. So anyway, Goliath shows up and he's like, hey guys, got some news. Wasp is out here and she needs help. She just called and said that she needs help. So why don't you guys, if you have time, to go and answer that call? I'm a whole lot closer to her than you guys, so I'm going to answer the call also. I'm just not waiting. I'm just saying, coming back up because she says it's a big deal. So Goliath goes, Clint Barton goes and shows up, and there's Wasp, Jenna Van Dyne, and she's like, yeah, so I was actually hanging out with Yellow Jacket, Hank Pym. Hanging out with my hunt. They're married at this point. The slap heard around the world hadn't happened yet. There's a slap in here, but there's lots of slaps. There's lots of men beating women in comic books way back in the day. And I wouldn't say beating. It's not like bang, bang, bang. But, there's the Sean Connery kind of give him a little slap, right? That stuff, all right? It wasn't a good thing. It wasn't even a good thing back then. But it's what happened back then, as far as, the comics and the stories. That's the stuff that they showed. Oh, a woman is being erratic in the movies or whatever? Give her a backhand. Comics were just a reflection of that. Love it, hate it, be indifferent to it, not my business. That's yours. So Hank was out trying to, he's a scientist, a very intelligent scientist, scientist supreme at some point later on, and his wife Janet Van Dyne hanging out with him. But he's out trying to understand and research the effects of oil drilling on the planet, right? And he's up in the Arctic, and he sees this big land up there that has lots of vegetation. He's like, "What the heck is this?" Now, this should not be confused with the Savage Land. The Savage Land is in the Antarctic. All right, this is in the Arctic. It's way up north. There are polar bears up here, no penguins. All right, so and it's not even that huge of a stretch of land. There's, just it is what it is. But there's all this great. It seems very Savage Landish, though. There are dinosaurs and other large, creature. Like, for instance, this large dragonfly that shows up. But they see this big thing in the middle that's kind of emitting some kind of a signal, like a lighthouse, right? Light beams coming out. And it's melting the snow up there and making things larger. So as he's flying up there, he starts to feel something. He's not sure what he feels. So he's just like, "Jan, you need to go back. I'm sorry, honey. I'm sorry I have to do this, but I don't have any time to explain. I need you to go back and get help," because he feels it's too late for him. She's about to get knocked out anyway. He's about to pass out. He's in the process of passing out. He turns around and just kind of, bam, Sean Connery's her, knocks her unconscious. She falls, asleep on the giant dragonfly, and gets, taken back. Pym uses his equipment. He's able to control a lot more than ants. He always did the Ant-Man thing, blah, 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 whatever. He can control a lot more than just ants, all insects for the most part. And he controls this dragonfly and says, "Take her back to safety." So that's when, she calls for help, and Goliath shows up, and it's like, "Oh, okay, so that's the deal. Good to know." So they go out to explore and see what's going on. And all of a sudden, this big tailed ape monster thing attacks, and Goliath winds up getting overtaken. He's also dealing with some effects of the stuff that's out there that's going on. So Ronan is there with Century 459, and they're like, "Oh crap, freaking Avengers again, these guys, why do they always show up, what's going on?" So by this point, the rest of the Avengers show up, and Janet is already there, and she's, guiding them, "Hey, this way, this way, this way." And they come up, and here's Goliath working side by side with this Sentry. They're both the same size too, which is totally awesome. So they're not sure exactly what's going on, but Clint Barton is under the control of this the Sentry, more specifically Ronan. This thing, as it turns out, this giant light tower thing, this is a part of Project Atavus, Plan Atavus. It's actually meant to devolve humans all the way back as far as Amoeba and reset the Earth to kind of try again. It's one of the things that they had to do, I guess, in their minds, because Earth was getting out of control. I love that. I love the idea that we've got this potential inside of us, right? So Mar-vell is trapped inside. Ronan is, taunting him and saying, "Whatever, I'm going to get all y'all." There's a bunch of dinosaurs roaming around, and there's trash talking. And anyway, so at some point, while the Avengers are busy, Wasp winds up getting knocked out by Hank Pym. That's right, she gets backhanded twice by big men. So he just boom and knocks her out, but he's at least, mind controlled by the enemy at this point. She gets knocked out, and all of a sudden this big beast, this Neanderthalic like beast, comes up with a big club to kill her, or at least to eat her. I mean, something's going on. And then you notice that he's also wearing the Yellow Jacket costume. So this is what's happening. These humans are all being devolved, including Yellow Jacket, Hank Pym. And now he's here to kill his wife. Apropos. So issue number 91. Mind you, these comics are 15 cents, man. How you doing? So we take the step from right there. He's Pym's about to come down with the club, and he's like, "Wait a second, so pretty, no club, weak, hurt, girl, me cannot hurt." And he picks her up and tries to bring her to safety. Bunch more stuff is going to happen because like 3 more Neanderthals are going to show up and try to take Jan from him, because like, you act weird. They're not really doing a whole lot of talking. He does a little bit, but anyway, those 3 apes are actually the scientists in question. So there's this big fight, and these guys just they can't win. They're already being weakened by the idea that they're being reduced to their smallest, to amoeba eventually, like through this process that Pym has already been going through for a while. Even Rick's trying to help. He goes and launches a freaking rock at the Sentry's head, for crying out loud. They're all trying to work and feed off of each other. Vision is able to take down Goliath in that very safe, phase my hand, well, kind of essentially phase my hand into your chest and then solidify it for just the briefest of moments to give you kind of like a spasm on your heart, to have a little arrhythmia and then make you pass out, right? But they're not able to do a whole lot with the Sentry. He's just way too powerful. They're much like Sentinels. They're designed to learn over what you can do. And they're even the Vision winds up getting his demolecular form is actually winds up, boom, sucker. He gets kind of bumped back and knocked unconscious. And you don't usually see Vision hurt like this. So Scarlet Witch runs over like, holy crap, oh, and she starts like, wake up, no, like that. And like the cry is so primal that even Quicksilver's like, oh crap, sis, are you okay? The distraction is enough. Big ring of fire, old school Ghost Rider style. Just boom, ring of fire, and Rick and Quicksilver even can't get through. Rick has to talk some serious sense into an extremely upset Quicksilver, because he's just like, dude, there's nothing you could do. You're going to get yourself killed trying to do this. We have to, go back and have a plan. It's like, maybe you're right. And he leaves, but he's feeling like a coward and everything. All the rest of the Avengers get taken. Ronan's like, I got y'all. An android and a non-human, humanoid, but you're not technically considered human, even though you're obviously a human. Anyway, bang, you freaking mutant. Hang you guys up, next to each other, and hey, what the heck's going on? They start to catch feelings, or they've been catching feelings for each other. And this is actually the first issue where they show this love relationship build. Doesn't crescendo, of course, but this is the first time you see the first signs of them loving each other. They go to kiss, and Vision pulls back. It's like, no, I'm just an android. They didn't come up with the term synthesoid yet. I'm just an android. So Ronan's laughing about it. He's like, look at this Days of Our Lives crap, man. Him successfully saves Jan. They start going into all the things that they're capable of doing and whatnot. Quicksilver's doing the best he can. He's trying to break in, is able to save his sister, Wanda, Scarlet Witch, just in time from getting devolved herself. They still can't do a whole lot against the Sentry. It's rough. They're doing everything they can. Rick, again, he's jumping in. He's trying to do what he can. They're about to get their butt handed to them. There's nothing they can do. And all of a sudden, a thing shows what do you call it? They get a summons. Hear me, Ronan, Supremor of the Kree Galaxy. Hear me, O Most High Accuser. It's like, what? What is this? What's going on? It's like, I cannot hear you, great Ronan, but I pray that you receive my message. An emergency, 5th magnitude, has occurred in the spot in the short time since you left us. The Kree Galaxy is at war. The Skrull have invaded our spaces and whatnot. So this Cold War that we've been dealing with, all of a sudden, it's popped off. It's popping off right now. We need you, guys. Remember I talked about the whole the Aeneid of Virgil before, and the real, which is based off of the real life military strategic battles and whatnot over Carthagena versus Rome, right? These two empires. And Rome was just a budding empire at the time. They really solidified it with the defeat of Carthage, which nobody believed could possibly happen. Anyway, so the Phoenician wars and whatnot. So anyway, they or the Peloponnesian, Phoenician or Peloponnesian. I think this is Peloponnesian. Peloponnesian. Look it up, kids. I'll probably post it here. So that's actually what happened with Hannibal the Great. He was right there at the gates of Rome. No more elephants. He ran out of elephants, but he goes and launches a spear, or somebody, the general, launches a spear on top of the ground. Like, we're here, suckers. Let the boogeyman story start. 3 weeks later, while he's sieging, he should have just attacked, but it is what it is. He gets called back by his dad. Hey, the Romans are actually here at our gates. We need your help, or there's going to be no empire for you to bring this empire, to the heels of. So he returns, and that's basically what happens here. Just at the moment of Ronan the Accuser getting what he wants, he gets called back. When he leaves, there are no more orders for Century 459. So I don't remember if this is the last that we see of him, but he pretty much explodes himself. By doing this, it actually winds up destroying the Citadel also. So that sinks down into the ice. The without that heat and that light that's being generated, the snow and the cold quickly starts moving back in. These guys are freezing. They're sharing capes with each other and whatnot. But yeah, anyway, so that's the stuff that happens. Now we're going to skip over to we're going to go on to issue number 92. This one kind of breaks my heart because it says still 15 cents. Kids, anytime you used to see that back in the day, that's what I would see that and be like, oh no, they're going to raise the price. And they did. They eventually they quickly raised it to 25 cents. Imagine that, man. That's a huge price increase from 15 cents to 25 cents. Think about that. Think about that. That's almost double an increase. Nowadays, comic books are what, $3.99? Imagine the comic book goes up to $5 per, right? $5.50 per comic book. I mean, that's like, whoa, dude, what are you doing here? No, actually, it'd be like $6 or $6.50. Imagine if the comic books were $6 to $6.50 for a 22 or 20-page comic book. Get out of here. So you see that there's going to be a return of the Avengers in here. Yeah, sure, kind of. The Mighty Avengers, all things must end. So Sal Buscema on art, George Russos doing the ink, and Sam Rosen back on letters. They're talking about the stuff that's happened. They're on leisure time. Scarlet Witch is trying to ask her, Quicksilver and Vision, hey, you guys want to come and hang out? Vision's kind of too busy trying to learn this variant on the English Open and chess, and Quicksilver is trying to not move his feet for once. So she's about to go up by herself. Well, no worries. Jarvis charges in with a newspaper. And I miss newspapers. I know they still technically exist. There's so much fun you could have with newspapers. For instance, right here. Alien plot to conquer Earth disclosed. Technicians tell of top secret Alaska battle between Avengers and mysterious race known only as the Kree. President acts quickly to appoint a special commission. That's right. Those scientists were sworn to secrecy. They didn't say that, but here they're saying that. But they break that code, that swearing of secrecy, whatever. And they say, hey, this stuff happened. The Avengers, they knew about this stuff. So an alien invasion is kind of a big deal. When you think about it, Fantastic Four and the X-Men 2 and Avengers, nobody really talked about the alien invasions to the people. Like, hey, guys, so there's actually aliens out there. You see this big guy here with the hammer, Thor? He's an alien. So they're just like, they didn't realize that these were all aliens, per se. They weren't sure. So all of a sudden, there's this guy on TV, W. Warren Craddock. This guy's basically a ball buster. If you guys aren't familiar with the not the Warren Commissions, that was actually the investigation to find out what happened with the assassination of JFK. No, the Red Scare, McCarthyism. So Senator McCarthy was a failed senator who was about to not get reelected because he's never done anything. They're just like, you're very unpopular. You haven't done anything for your state. You suck. So you got to think of something, otherwise you're not going to be reelected. He's like, well, I've got an idea. I'll start blaming people for being communists. So he goes out and he says, I forget what the original number is that was reported on. It was like 156 or something like that, whatever it was. But in reality, the number was much lower. It was like 49. I've got like 49 or 64, whatever. I've got this list of known Americans who are actually communists, and they're communist sympathizers, and worse than that, they're actually agents who are going to try and force communism on us. So I've got that list. The only way I'm going to act on this is if you reelect me. So it won, but he had to keep on doing this. So he actually wound up having the McCarthy, the Red Scare, it was called. And this actually helped for us to be afraid of Sputnik and all this other crazy stuff that was going on. All of this crazy stuff, dude. This was insanity. And McCarthy was a terrible, terrible human being. That's basically the model that they made for Craddock over here. Anyway, he shows up and he's, saying all this stuff and whatever. And these guys are like, uh-oh. And they really want to talk to the Avengers about Captain Mar-vell, because they were the Kree called him Man of the Kree. I think one of them actually called him a traitor at one point. Anyway, so a helicopter shows up and it's Carol Danvers. She's showing up and she's going to show up, but the helicopter starts falling. So it's like, oh no, it's falling. So Captain Mar-vell, he can't fly. So this is kind of important right here. He jumps up as hard as he can to slam into the helicopter to help try and break its fall. And then the Vision flies up, and mind you, he only flies by being lighter than air, so he clearly can't pick things up because he can manipulate his own molecules, but not that of other people. And he's barely even technically manipulating the molecules, but manipulating the molecular bond. So anyway, when he's flying and stuff, he can't carry people, right? Anytime that they've shown that he can carry people, that's wrong. He can't. He has to go immaterial to fly. So he can't lift this thing. So instead, he's going to kind of jump up and do something very similar to Mar-vell, but he goes solid so the thing doesn't break, so you can try and help break its fall. Anyway, very cool. Mar-vell is jacked the heck up. The roof is jacked up. And again, Wanda goes up, are you okay? It's like, I'm an android. I'll be all right. And he leaves. And she's like feeling sad and everything. Anyway, so Carol Danvers is there. Is like, listen, you've rescued me before. I think it's my time to rescue you. My turn to rescue you. These guys are coming for you. And you need to leave now. Rick Jones is like, I actually have a summer home up in blah, 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 blah. You can go up there and do what you're going to do. It's like, yeah, sure. Let's, no, I'm not going to do that. Mar-vell's like, I'm not going to run. By the time that he's convinced that maybe he should, all of a sudden Nick Fury shows up with a bunch of howling, see what I did there? Howling ships, right? Shows up and they're like flying around, a bunch of, airplanes flying around downtown New York, right? And they're like, dude, what the frick is this? Well, Craddock already sent these guys to make sure they don't escape so that so Craddock and his people could show up and try and pull these guys out. Real fun stuff. Anyway, Rick is thinking about all the crazy politics that's going on, and this is important for me to stop and talk about this. He's sitting here thinking about how all the old, at the time they were just called the Golden Age superheroes, which includes Captain America, the original Human Torch, and Namor, right? Those are names that you're very familiar with. Maybe you're also familiar with the Patriot, right? But some of these other names you're not going to be familiar with. And he's remembering these guys from the comic books, right? Some of these characters were like the ones I mentioned for the most part. Captain America, Captain America and Namor are the only two that were considered real. Even the original Human Torch wasn't considered real back then, even though he fought against Namor. The people didn't remember that necessarily. So he was considered real-ish, but yeah, all the other ones completely just comic book characters. Like, not even just by the known public. They were considered only comic book characters, even to the readers. That Roy Thomas is trying to get that across. Cap and Namor were real, but these other guys were just comic book stories. Very interesting, right? So he's just remembering how it was a simpler time where you clearly knew what good and evil was. So all of a sudden, some big guy starts picking on some little guy outside Avengers Mansion. Goliath sees this, and since he's the biggest one of all, he goes down and he's like, hey, what are you doing? Why are you picking on this guy? And the guy's like, Harvey, you better serve him. I know that Tony Stark got a rough serve, from a subpoena or whatever, by that person serving him in the beginning of Iron Man 2. But yeah, no, this was, to me, this was way cooler because I didn't see this coming. They set up this whole bully thing just so that they could serve this guy. Like that's cold, bro. That's really cold. So they serve him, and this is interesting, these next scenes that come up. Some of these are pretty famous scenes, particularly this first one on this page, because look at what they got here. Avengers disassemble. This is the first time that that's ever been shown. right? And later on, there'd be the Avengers disassemble storyline, and all that. And really good stuff. Amazing stuff. I loved it. We'll be talking about that stuff one of these days. But for now, this is where that stuff came from. The idea that the distrust of heroes didn't only come by way of the X-Men. In fact, it mostly started with the Avengers. Not entirely, but Avengers was a much more popular comic book. The Inhumans were more popular than the X-Men back in the day. So it is what it is. So they go into court to have this trial and see what's going on. And meanwhile, Ben Grimm and Reed Richards are there also. So everybody's giving testimony. They're talking about what happened. The scientists are giving their testimony. Reed is brought in as a character witness, and he's like, "No, I trust these guys. I absolutely. Look, crazy stuff happened, and maybe we want to handle it the right way or handle it the same way. Maybe we would have handled it better. All right. But what I will say is, I trust the Avengers. So if they're doing a thing, I trust them. You guys should trust them too. I'm giving them my shoulder rub." Ben Grimm's almost the exact opposite. He's like, "Oh yeah, absolutely love the Avengers. Then I trust the heck out of them. But I don't know who these guys are. These don't look like any Avengers I know. Where's Cap? Where's Thor? Where's Shellhead? Right? Who are these freaking numbskulls?" So I actually thought that was interesting. I love the idea of that. Goliath gets up and he's like, "Yeah, let's go. I'm going to kick your butt, man." Ben Grimm's just looking, he's like, "Fool, I will hit you so hard. My great Aunt Petunia will have to be picking up your body parts for weeks." And that's exactly how it would go. Anyway, so Vision gets brought up to testify, and they weren't planning on listening because they're just like, "Well, you have a very strange voice. What's going on?" So they show that his voice is different because the way that the word balloons, the word bubbles are shown. But that being the case, they it's not like a major thing. You only notice it when you choose to notice it, right? But for the most part, the word bubbles, yes, they do look different, but not very different. But it's very obvious once you call attention to it. So he's speaking in a very monotone, emotionless voice. He can raise the pitch and the tone of his voice, but he can't actually change it in the sense of making it sound like there's some emotion there. Even if he shows it sometimes, it would still be, "Wanda, you're breaking my heart. Please don't hurt me." And it's like, one of these kind of things. So anyway, so they called him up just simply so that the court can hear his voice, and then he can admit that he's an android, not a robot, but an android. Like, "Well, we can't listen to your testimony. We can't trust you. How could you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "Well, I'm incapable of lying." "How do we know that?" This is the kind of company the Avengers keep. So at one point, Vision just says, "Listen," because Clint is a hothead and he's trying to jump in, he's trying to intercede and help out his bud. It's like, "I can handle myself, Avenger." He says, "Mr. Craddock, my design is such that my voice is always even, some seemingly unemotional. But if I could, I would beg you in the most beseeching tones to call off this witch hunt, this trial by accusation, before it does irreparable harm." And the way that he says it somehow actually gets the people to listen. But Craddock is like, "No." And he breaks them out of this almost hypnotic thing. It's interesting later on that he's able to do this. But anyway, he's able to break them out of this and says, "No, not changing anything. Go sit down. We're going to go and talk to somebody else." Rick Jones all of a sudden like, "Dude, I had a dream last night that something was happening." Then also he starts getting this vision of Captain Mar-vell and Carol Danvers going up to this house, and this Cthulian tentacle stuff starts coming out and attacking him. He's like, "What the frig?" So Rick runs out because, again, he's feeling guilt about the Captain Marvel thing, charges out to go after him, and boom, not a mistrial, but a delay in the trial happens because, like, "Oh, we couldn't catch him. He ran too fast." "Yeah, that's right. Can't catch the Rick. The Rick's too quick." So anyway, the people outside are yelling. What's his name? Knuckleface. Goliath is really upset over it. They go back and they see that there's some damage and whatnot. Tomatoes being thrown up again. Like, who just carries fresh fruit or rotten fruit around on them, right? Anyway, they got rotten fruit and they threw it at the Avengers mansion. Turns out that the door is actually open and some of them actually got in. Excuse me. Jarvis explains, like, "Listen, man, it's really bad. I know the place is ransacked, but some of them came. So I opened the door to talk to them, like, hey, you guys got to calm down. I tried to reason with them, but they wouldn't be reasoned with. They were actually in a tizzy, and I couldn't appeal to them at all. They were absolutely mad. They were crazy. So they came in. So I actually wound up um actually, I didn't think he opened the door for them. Anyway, whatever happened here, read it yourself, guys. At one point, he said I had to turn off the traps. So I think that's how they actually got in. I had to turn off the traps because otherwise they would have gotten hurt. These traps are made to stop super villains, not regular people. So I turned off the traps so I get hurt. So that's why they wound up breaking in. Something to that effect. Anyway, Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man walk in. Like, you did the right thing, Jarvis. As far as the rest of you knuckleheads, you're all a bunch of morons, bunch of tart carts. Get out of here. You're fired. Yeah. And then Thor's just like, with the hammer. Y'all know over here. And then they teleport away. Well, that's odd. So the Avengers here, Goliath and Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Vision are like, seriously? Yeah, seriously. You got the boot. So they're like, all right, sorry, Jarvis. I guess we're fired. Bye. So Jarvis is like, no problem. I'll just tidy up a bit and then I'll lock up since Avengers have been disbanded. That's messed up. So anyway, we're going to get to the next issue. This is issue number 93, and it is, in fact, 25 cents. Sorry, guys. And this is a very interesting issue. But first, I did tell you about the 1 hour mark. I did tell you that we're going to have a comic book to talk about, right? Besides these. So let's move over to Kickstarter. We'll be interviewing the writer, and boom, we'll leave it with that. Hey, so I'm here with Chris McLish. Hey, you're a PhD. Can I just call you Doc?
Certainly.
All right. So what's up, Doc? No. I'm too old for that. Anyway, Chris, you are the writer and the creator of a new Kickstarter comic book coming out, Assemblage.
Yes. So let me begin with a brief description of the Assemblage comic book.
Let's talk about it.
And just to quickly say to you, Professor Bill, thank you for the time and the opportunity.
Always happy to help out. This is your first comic book that you're putting together. So,
yes.
And I looked through it. I like it. It's interesting. So, yeah, absolutely. Let's get into it. So in general, what is Assemblage about? All you gave me was a couple little things here, a couple little things there, a whole bunch of teasers making me want the entire comic book, which you haven't given me yet. but I'm going to get
it. Yes. So let me describe it briefly. The Assemblage comic book is about a team of superheroes who visit Earth to investigate unusual signs of interstellar travel that exceed 21st century human technology. On Earth, they confront a cosmic entity and his human agent who are exacerbating chaos and hostility. The mission of the Assemblage is to protect all forms of life. That's a quick summary or description.
Awesome. That's awesome. So is it going to be human heroes in this?
It's a mixture. So the Assemblage is a group of orphans from different planets. Okay. So you'll have some humans and you'll have some extraterrestrials.
So are some of the Assemblage already humans? Like some of the humans are already in the Assemblage, or are they going to be doing any kind of recruiting?
There are some to begin. There are some members who are humans. Mm-hmm. Additionally, they will recruit some more human members.
So there will be some origin story in here also.
Yes.
From the beginning. Okay, that's awesome. That's exactly the kind of thing that I think we're looking for. So in general, so you just told me in general who the Assemblage are. So you're cutting through all my questions before I get to them. So talk to me about some influences on this book, please.
Certainly. There are three main categories of influence on the comic book. Firstly, mythologies of the world. Secondly, comic books, cartoons, and science fiction from the 80s and 90s. as well as a bit of the 60s. And thirdly, history, philosophy, and paleontology.
That's fantastic. See, that's the problem. You know too much. You're too smart. You're going to bring all the stuff together. You're going to make an incredible comic book.
Thank you, thank you, Bill.
Hey. It's all good. It's all good. So yeah, I'm actually digging on that sort of thing. So in general, these powers that these guys are going to have, give me some hints. Don't spoil, but just some hints, some general. What are some of the things that we can expect?
So the powers of the assemblage originate from incorporeal beings
Mhm.
in a higher reality. And as one of the few people who've seen the preview pages, those incorporeal beings are those orbs, are spheres in the preview pages. And they endow the assemblage with extra chi or extra life energy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So they're going to be basically using key force in a way. Is this okay? I got to know. Is anybody going to be using martial arts?
Martial arts. Not explicitly. Not
Okay.
explicitly.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But getting this key energy, okay, I'm digging the heck out of this. This is actually really interesting. I grew up in the martial arts myself since 8 years old. So yeah, listen, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. I was one of those dumb kids who I think I was 14 years old when, and nobody knew this. I was on the track and field team. I was liked. I was befriended. Everything. But I used to get the kung fu, not the kung fu, the Karate Illustrated, I think it was.
Okay.
And in the back, they had one of those ads: is develop your key energy. Like,
Okay.
no, okay, I gotta check this out. So it was a stupid thing where you'd hang a straw by a string from the ceiling at eye level, an actual straw, and you have to make sure that you're not breathing out of your mouth, only through your nose, so you're not pushing it. But you'd sit there and you try and push it with your finger and use your key, and then pull it. And I used to do all that stupid stuff. I'm like, this is like the force. And if I could learn how to do this, yes, right. I was 14 years old doing this stupid stuff. That's how awesome key energy is to me. So I love, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, okay, this should be pretty good. So it's not a bad thing that there aren't martial arts in this explicitly, but no, I'm actually digging the idea of that, because the idea is that, the idea is that anybody can use key energy. So
Yeah.
to me, that actually builds up a lot of possibility for who could actually be the assemblage, who the assemblage could actually have to fight, because I did see some previews. I did see some ahead of the stuff. So the bad guys that they're going to be fighting, what's their power set?
Okay. So all four villains do appear in the preview pages. Some appear more subtly than others, but the two ones who probably stand out in those 12 preview pages, one is the giant mechanical ape, the Affectless, and he is the last relic of a long extinct warlike civilization.
That's insane. Okay, so I mentioned before we started that I'm not usually a huge fan of apes in comics because they overdid them. But this Mecha King Kong looking thing is incredible. And I can't, like, that is literally the thing that I'm looking forward to the most. Like, what is this thing gonna do? And now what you just said, you basically just described a mechanized version of Gorilla Grodd. And I am, yeah, I honestly can't wait to see something like this. So what should people expect when they're reading the assemblage comic book?
Okay, so the art, characters, and ideas in the assemblage will entertain you and stimulate your imagination. The comic book is dynamic, lively, and vibrant with a theme of selflessness. And we invite you to visit a new universe of adventure, get to know some of the characters in this new universe on June 13th. Additionally, I have to give tremendous credit to the creative team. I can't say enough that the work they're doing is wonderful, phenomenal, excellent. So Carlos Beccaria, the interior artist and colorist, he's doing a fantastic job. And world design, the letterer, Jeff Spokes, the cover and pinup artist, and Ebony Wellington, the assistant editor. I give them so much credit. They're a pleasure to work with, and they're doing phenomenal work.
Nice. All right, cool. Guys, we're gonna get back to the spotlight on story real quick. Hey guys, we're back. Hope that wasn't too much for you, and I hope that you do absolutely consider checking out this comic book once it drops, once the Kickstarter stops. It's not a whole lot to support comic book writers and comic book artists and the local stuff to try and boost our medium, our genre, right? It's not a whole lot to do that. Join me in doing that, please. So back to issue number 93 at 25 freaking cents, bunch of highway robbers. And the Mighty Avengers, this beseeched or this beachhead Earth. So Stanley editor Roy Thomas writing, Neil Adams jumping on the art, and you could tell a noticeable difference, and Tom Palmer doing the inks with Sam Rosen on letters. So Vision comes breaking into the Avengers mansion while Cap and Iron Man and Thor are there, and he just comes in and he's hurt, clearly, like badly hurt, and just walks over and is like, help me, please help me, and then falls face first on the ground. Avengers roll him over like, what the frick is going on? And yeah, they have no idea what the hell's happening. They have no idea why the Avengers aren't there, why they're coming into a place that is pretty much empty. They had no clue what was happening. So since they didn't know what was happening, gee, what happened there? I'll explain that stuff later. It's not a part of the story just yet. There's the mystery. So all of a sudden there's this voice that just comes out of nowhere. Hey, bunch of knuckleheads, what's going on? And they're like, oh my God, what's going on? They're like, show yourself, villain. But Cap's like, wait a second, I've got an idea. Let's go over to the micro glass, and there's Ant-Man. So it's Hank Pym. He recovered. He's not a Neanderthal anymore. And he's like, yeah, so you technically, yeah, I came back in my Ant-Man costume because, you called for all of the original Avengers to show up. So sorry, Jan's not here. She's, I guess it's indicated that she's kind of recovering. They don't mention it here, but yeah. He's like, but I showed up as Ant-Man. So what's up? What you need, bud? So they're like, yeah, I don't know. Like, nobody's here. What's going on? So no explanation just yet, but they start talking, and quick reminder of when Ultron 1 was created, and the idea that, while Hank Pym didn't design the Vision, he does understand the Vision more than anybody else, since he designed the person who designed the Vision, which is Ultron. So he says, listen, let me take my ants and we'll go inside this guy, and Crosby, Stills, and Nash are their names. It's an old band. You should check them out. Really good stuff from these guys. Anyway, Neil Young would join them at some point later on. Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. But for now, he says, I'm going to go inside Vision. I'm going to find out what's going on. This was a very cool issue. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of what happens here, but if you're not familiar with Ant-Man, or you only know him from the movies and whatnot, understand this is an amazing character. This is actually Stan Lee's favorite character, right? He had to make this character and do all sorts of cool stuff with him. Anyway, so he goes and he's like, he goes and he starts handling his business. He's able to, fix everything up. And then he's like, all right, guys, anyway, understand, I did actually quit the Avengers. So it's not just the idea that I'm going on a leave of absence. He's like, I'm actually quitting. And actually that had happened in the previous issue. He quit actually 2 issues ago, because when he was at the, I forgot to mention this, my apologies. When he was in this northern version of the Savage Land, he was like, clearly I'm not as powerful as the rest of you guys. I'm not much of a superhero. I'm better off in a lab with Bunsen burners and beakers and stuff like that. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to change my inactive status to quit status. He actually leaves the Avengers in that issue. Here he just showed up because they specifically asked for all the original Avengers to show up. But Jarvis went and left a note and said, hey, sorry, it sucks that you said that we're disbanded, like, but we didn't disband. What's going on? So Vision starts giving a big recap of all the stuff that had happened and whatnot, and really beautiful art in this, guys. I'm in love with this art. Explains how they all went to go and try and find out what happened to Rick. Rick went and left, so they're going to go up and try and find out what's up with Captain Mar-vell. As they're flying overhead, all of a sudden Vision gets shot by some cows in a field. There's these 3 cows in the field. And somehow they shot laser beams up and hit them. So the other Avengers come down like, dude, what the frick is going on here? And all of a sudden these 3 cows shape change into the male members of the Fantastic Four. Yeah. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Fantastic Four issue number 2. The first time that we ever met the Skrulls, there were these 4 Skrulls, and they showed up, and they were, trying to handle business. One of those Skrulls got away. One of these days, maybe I'll tell you what happened to that Skrull. In the meantime, 3 of the Skrulls were captured, and Reed had them turn into cows, and then took away their shape-changing powers. So they were stuck as cows. Didn't want to just kill them. Come on already, right? He's not a murderer. So anyway, these 3 guys, they somehow get they were given amnesia. That's actually how that they were given amnesia when they were in their cow form, so they forgot that they were actually Skrulls. So anyway, they were somehow given their memories back. And these Avengers, these couple Avengers, they can't handle these 3 Skrulls, especially now, with the power that these particular Skrulls have in their Fantastic Four form. Now, Skrulls aren't particularly powerful. They can shape change. Deceit is their big thing, and they're very savage. They're ruthless. They will murder a baby, saying right in front of the mother. So, like, they're horrible, ruthless creatures right now. There are reasons for that. When we get into the Celestial Madonna stories and all that stuff, maybe I'll explain that better. But it's the Kree's fault. Anyway, but like case in point with the Thing, this version of the Thing, he's using anti-gravity abilities and several other mechanics in order to give him the extra strength. He's only shape changed in the form of the Thing. So anyway, that's how even this much weaker Thing, he's able to knock freaking Goliath out. one sock, boom. So they're all fighting each other and whatnot, and they're ruthless, and they explain, we're the Skrulls and da 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 da. They go back and they show that Carol Danvers and Captain Mar-vell have been kidnapped, but while these Skrulls are out there doing the things that they're doing, Mar-vell is able to use his negabands in a mirror, and he's able to get himself out of this particular situation. He goes over and he rips Carol Danvers out of the situation that she's in, and he goes over and it's like, okay, I have got to handle business, and I've got to try and put together, or he's like, I see this Omniwave projector. Oh my God, how they get their hands on this? I don't remember if it's here or some other place, but either way, he says, oh, it is here. He says, for us, we're able to just contact people over, faraway distances, and yet the Skrulls would give 10 planets for the secrets of the Omniwave, for they know it could be much more than a mere instrument of communication. It can also become the most dangerous weapon in the cosmos. Well, that's putting a lot of thought into it, but anyway, yeah. So it can become super deadly, super dangerous. When we get into Operation Galactic Storm, holy crap. There's some talk there for what the Omniwave projector can do, and several other stories also. But anyway, for now, bang, this is what we've got. So the original Avengers show up, and they start going against these fake freaking Fantastic Fours. So it starts saying this CompuSystem primed for blastoff. Like, what the heck is going on here? So Mar-vell's trying to figure out what to do with the Omniwave projector, and then he destroys it. He just breaks it. And Carol Danvers is like, well, you destroyed it. Then you know. He says, yes, at last, I do know. What? Countdown, 10, 9. The Avengers are fighting against these fake Fantastic Four. 8, 7, they start going, and then all of a sudden Carol Danvers shape changes into not just any Skrull, but the Super-Skrull. Guys, back in the day, nowadays Super-Skrull gets punked all the time. Back in the day, Super-Skrull could take on all of the Fantastic Four. Bruh. The only way that FF can beat him is through Reed thinking things, because the only power that Super-Skrull can't replicate is the great intelligence of Reed Richards. He can do all of his powers, but Reed's power isn't just the ability he can stretch like a rubber band. It's the idea that he's the greatest mind on Earth. So there's that. Anyway, Luna, the devil dinosaur chick, Moon Girl, she wasn't around at the time. Luna Lafayette. So 8, 7, 6, 5, as the Avengers are still fighting against these guys. Super-Skrull goes and knocks out, use a knockout gas of some sort on Mar-vell. And he's got the other two, Quicksilver and Pietro. They're the same people, Wanda and Quicksilver. He's got them both together. Still a lot of fighting going on. 4, 3, 2, 1. Some of the Avengers are taking out most of the fake Fantastic Four, but it's not completely done. Super-Skrull is like, all right, guys, time to go. Bye. And the building, the house that they were in, falls apart, and the Skrull ship was actually in there, and it starts flying off. That's what the tentacles were. It was Super-Skrull just doing tentacles to get them. But they're at 0. The Fantastic Four, fake Fantastic Four, are finally defeated. Now they're able to get close to the ship. Goliath, grows to a big height, starts punching through the ship, starts actually destroying it. Super-Skrull's like, dude, I can handle meteor storms and lightning storms, ethereal winds, but it wasn't made to handle these freaking punches, dude. And Goliath, all of a sudden, one more punch, and he's going to handle bitterness, but then he starts to shrink. The Pym formula. I think Pym doesn't need them anymore because it's automatically in his system. That's what led to his schizophrenia, led to him beating his wife, all that good stuff, right? Well, not good stuff, but you get what I'm saying. Hank Pym, however, he's not quite there yet mentally, but his body doesn't automatically, he hasn't absorbed, he hasn't been exposed to the Pym particles as much as Janet and Hank have. So they can transform, they can shape change at will. This guy can't. Goliath still has to take the formula. It only lasts for approximately an hour, and it just wore off. So as he's in the middle of falling, Thor has to make a decision because Iron Man's kind of scuffed at the moment. Thor makes a decision. Do I take down the ship or do I save this guy? Thor can't fly. He only flies by throwing his hammer. So if he throws his hammer to take care of the ship, then he's not going to be able to save Goliath. He'd rather save Goliath. He's a good guy. That's what heroes do. So Goliath is kind of, feeling bad about this stuff, but it is what it is. Anyway, next issue. Oh, they dropped the price down to 20 cents. Yay. I guess people were like, what the frick? So it's 20 cents only. Issue number 94, cover date of December. Behold, the Mandroids. If you guys are familiar with the yellow, golden things, the Mandroids, this is their first appearance. Mighty Avengers. Neil Adams is doing the art. Tom Palmer on ink. Sam Rosen doing the letters again. And Roy Thomas is still the writer, while Stan Lee is the editor. Of course, that's not going to change for any of the comics. They go and they put down these Skrulls. They murder them. No, I'm just joking. Captain America does like a a sedative ray. It's called more than what's this? Called more than inhuman. So the Inhumans are going to be in this issue. I told you they were coming up. So anyway, boom, they're asleep like a bunch of malevolent babies. They're talking to the Fantastic Four on view screen. Things like, oh yeah, how fast can you send them back there? To wherever they're going. It's like they explain what happened, why they're these Skrulls as cows in the middle of a freaking field and all that stuff. Like I laughed. He's like, oh, Super-Skrull. Oh, yeah, man. It's a good thing that he got off. He's got all our powers. He would have clobbered you. Ben's like, oh, Ben, for Pete's sake. He's like, well, he would have. Yeah, he absolutely would have. They had a hard time with just 3 Skrulls with a couple of mechanics. The Super-Skrull would have wasted them, man. I don't know about Thor, but anyway. So the Skrulls are going back at this point. And they've got this idea that we are going to destroy the Inhumans. So they actually start flying out there, but what's his name? Vision shows up. Vision shows up because he's trying to rescue Mar-vell and Pietro, and especially Wanda. So he's going up against a Super-Skrull specifically. He's able to avoid some stuff and whatnot, but for the most part, he's not going one-on-one. He's not going toe-to-toe with the Super-Skrull for long, and he knows this. He was trying to do what he could, and he failed. They still wound up dropping this bomb, this nuclear warhead on Adelan. Now, it's interesting. The reason why they needed Wanda and Pietro, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, is because they needed them to find the Inhumans. Maybe this is one of the reasons why the Marvel editorial and the writers and all that stuff decided to change these guys to Inhumans at one point. Knowing this kind of makes it easier to digest the idea that they weren't actually mutants, they were Inhumans the whole time. So there's that. Anyway, drops this bomb, but there's this big dark light shield over top of an energy umbrella, which Naught can pierce. That gets erected over top of this. Now, if you guys are familiar with the Fantastic Four and the first time that they met the Inhumans, not Medusa specifically, but all the other Inhumans, when they went back to Adelan, there was this shield over top that the only way they were able to get through it was with Black Bolt's voice. Black Bolt never spoke. You never understood the magnitude of his voice until he spoke and he destroyed the shield. Anyway, so you start to find out what else could potentially destroy the shield. Thor's on the team. Anyway, so Vision realized, like, I can't beat the Super-Skrull. I've got no chance. So he just renders himself immaterial again, and he just boop. He goes out of the ship and he leaves. He's out of 5,000. Part 2 of this story is called 1971: A Space Odyssey. I love it. I love it. So Super-Skrull talking his crap. The ship in here, I want to point out, back in the Fantastic Four, when they were showing the Super-Skrull ship, they showed it and it looked almost exactly like this. There was more detail to it because that was Stan Lee and Jack Kirby doing the Fantastic Four book. But even with Adams doing this on here, he's not the same artist that Kirby is. I don't think he's better, but I don't think he's worse either. He's just different. That's all. He's not going to go down with the legend that Kirby did, but nonetheless, Adams was an incredible human being, absolutely incredible human being. He was the first person to actually put forward the idea that artists should get their art back. He had some skin in the game. Jim Shooter didn't, and he's the one that actually made it happen, at least in Marvel. And then later on, it wound up happening in DC also, probably because Marvel already set a precedent, right? Anyway, so there's that. And Shooter and Neil Adams were actually really good friends. So the ship goes through a gravity well type thing, a spaceport thing, like the anomaly at whatever it is, the warp thing, and Deep Space Nine, Star Trek. Anyway, so these guys are, there's a bunch of talking, there's a back and forth thing. The Super-Skrull, he goes and explains, well, he's remembering how the king pulled him back from exile in order to, the Skrull Emperor, pulling back from exile specifically to go down and capture Captain Marvel and try and do what he can. He said, I'll give you anything, except for the throne. I was like, all right, cool. I won't tell you what it is, but yeah, talk to you later. Peace. So he goes down and he does exactly what he was told to do. His prize that he wanted was actually the Emperor's daughter. He wanted to marry the daughter so that eventually he could take over the Skrull throne world, but that was going to be an eventual thing. So it's funny how all the most powerful beings in these different planets, like just like Ronan the Accuser, the most powerful ones are exiled, right? Until there's a war. Then it's like, oh, come back in. We need you. And then you're immediately exiled again. Don't come near the planet. We got traps for you. And they did, in fact, have traps ready for the Super-Skrull. And one of them was powerful enough that it was actually able to take him down. Hey, guys, I'm not going to tell you everything that happens. Read the comic books to see how he gets taken down. It's actually pretty clever. It's actually very clever. So anyway, the Skrull Emperor wants Captain Marvel to build a new Omniwave projector. And he's like, no. Okay, cool. I'm going to take your two friends here, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, and I'm going to send them in to face this giant beast. They have a hell of a time trying to beat this thing. Finally, more through luck than anything else, they're able to defeat them. But defeat this thing. But they're just going to keep on sending more tests to these guys. And they send them to this other area. And there's these creatures. This is actually the second appearance of these things. They're kind of like tribbles. When you hit them, they multiply. So anyway, there's the fauna, or is it flora? They're technically flora, and they're actually called the Duff, I think. The Duff? Anyway, there's something like that. Anyway, so you know what? I'll put it right here. So, yeah. It's like, I'm going to kill your friends if you don't hook me up. So Quicksilver starts using his speed. These flora wind up getting bang, 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 bang all over the place, and they start multiplying, and they're about to die, much like that Star Trek episode, the Trouble with Tribbles. So the Skrull Emperor is like, hey, man, you better do it. You better tell me what's up. You better do the projector. Or your friends are about to die. You got moments. He's like, fine, I'll do it. Man, that's fussed, right? So think about this. He's actually about to be a betrayer of humankind, because they're going to use that Omniwave projector to destroy everything. Everything. So part 3, Behold the Mandroids. Craddock is doing some kind of a test thing to one of the scientists that ratted. He knows that they're innocent, but he winds up making these guys believe that they're actually guilty in some way. That's how powerful this machine is that they're using to interrogate these guys. Like, this is what we're going to do to the Avengers. This is what we're especially going to do to Captain Mar-vell, right? That man of the Kree. So anyway, the Avengers reunite with each other to try and have a conversation. They're in Avengers Mansion. All of a sudden, this is H. War. Oh, it's not W. Warren Craddock. H. Warren Craddock come out at once, and the Mandroids come out. Just 3 of them, but they're super powerful. They actually start talking about all the things that they can do, and it's insane. It's absolutely insane. Like, even their boot thrusters can be used as weapons, and very effectively, enough that they're able to take down and take out Goliath. Captain America tries to throw the shield at one of the pressure points on one of the Mandroids, but they've got a magnetic repulsor thing. Tony Stark uses the ultimate weapon in his suit, the roller skates. Get out of here with that. Miss me with that crap. Anyway, they mostly miss him, but he winds up getting close enough, and he gets jacked up, and then all of a sudden, out of the sewers, one of the sewer grates that's right there, is Triton. It's like, I'm here at last. Who can tell if he is friend or foe? And he's hurt. You can tell he's been shot all over the place. Next, it says Avenger versus Inhuman, and why. Triton is a really awesome character. He's actually one of my 2 favorite Inhumans. His brother Karnak is actually my favorite, well, of the 2. Anyway, Triton is awesome. He's basically the creature of the Black Lagoon in the Marvel Universe. So, yeah, love it. Absolutely love these characters. Guys, I'm going to take a quick break again. I'm going to leave you with the second of 2 parts of this comic book Kickstarter. Very short. Listen to it. You're going to like what you hear. Hey, guys, we're back real quick with Chris. Listen, Chris, I got to ask you, what are some of the influences that you've had in comic books that made you want to make this comic book?
Great question. To begin, I would say a variety of superhero team books, the Avengers, the new Teen Titans, the X-Men. Those would be like 3 of the main standouts amongst the variety of superhero teams I've enjoyed. over the decades.
Nice. So two of them with kids, and one of them just an incredible series of books, the Avengers, namely one that I'm doing right now. But okay, no, that's awesome. That's actually really good to see. So everything about the X-Men has always been about kids coming into their own, coming into puberty usually, and discovering their powers and whatnot. So I'm imagining that a lot of the theme of this comic book is going to be similar. How about you tell us a little bit more about the assemblage?
Definitely. The assemblage is a group of orphans from different planets who are raised in another reality and become a team of superheroes. In this other higher reality, incorporeal beings gift them with key-based powers. And these powers are contingent on just and selfless intentions.
That is awesome. So they actually lose their abilities if they're not just, if they're not doing good things.
Yes, so if they deviate from those selfless intentions, the powers will forsake them, abandon them.
Kind of sounds a little bit like a long shot to me. I'm loving it.
Yeah.
I'm loving it. That is okay. That is fantastic. Okay, I'm digging on that so much. Chris, I want to thank you so much for doing this. The Kickstarter. So what is the crowdfunder going to be specifically?
The Kickstarter will launch on June 13th.
Okay.
And when it launches officially, backers, readers can see more artwork and more details about the story and project. There will be 4 options from which backers, readers can select. And 2 of those options are PDFs, and the other 2 are both the physical printed copy and PDFs.
Nice. Nice. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Chris, listen, when the comic book actually comes out, and readers also, when the comic book actually comes out, on the bottom of this video, the comment section, I'm going to pin a comment that actually gives the link to the Kickstarter. Chris, I'm going to be promoting the heck out of your comic book because I really love the idea of this. I love the concept behind this. I'm actually going to leave these guys with a little bit of art before we get back to the spotlight on story. It's been really great having you here. Thank you so much. I actually wish I could have interviewed the other guys also, but I know that they're hard at work finishing up this comic book. They're halfway done with it right now, right?
Close. We're on page 15 at the moment.
Nice. And then Anwell Design has it, which is a popular one. So you're not sparing any budget on this, which I love to hear also. They're finishing up the letters on some of those pages. So
yes.
Beautiful, beautiful. Chris, thank you so much. And we will talk again. All right.
Thank you, Professor Bill. It's a pleasure, and I appreciate being able to share the project with you on your channel. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, man. Take care. And we're back. Okay, hamburger continue. So, what are you, a vegetarian? Fine. Let us continue. Okay, so the cover of issue number 94, that dollar store Hyperion looking guy with the hood on the front with the red and yellow, that's actually Maximus the Mad. I know he didn't always have the freaky costumes and all this other stuff. He had this superhero look going on for a while. Real goofy, but it is what it is. The Inhumans were... Some of these Inhumans are always drawn a little bit freaky, all right? And nobody's had crazier outfits than Maximus the Mad. So anyway, this issue is Stan Lee presenting, Roy Thomas on writing, and Neil Adams doing the art again. Tom Palmer doing the ink, Tom Palmer, and Sam Rosen on letters still. Something Inhuman this way comes. Kind of like Something Wicked this way comes. Great book, really freaking good movie. So if you remember the interlude that we had for the Inhumans, right? What was going on with the Inhumans world? That story is actually going to be concluded here. I know things are all over the place. I'm not saying that it was great to have the Inhumans everywhere, to have all these different stories being solved in other people's comics and whatnot, but it did get people to read all of the comic books for the most part, which was a darn good thing when push comes to shove. So there's that. Anyway, so Triton, the creature from the Black Lagoon of the Mar-vell universe, he starts running away because Triton wasn't really in that, was it like 4 issues or whatever, where they gave the what happened to Maximus the Mad and what happened to when Black Bolt left. He went flying away and handling his business someplace else, right? Trying to figure out what's what. So what happens here is we find out where Triton was the whole time. He leaves and he goes off and he starts trying to look for help because he realizes that Maximus the Mad has taken over and things aren't good. What exactly had happened? We'll get into all that good stuff, but Triton starts running. He's trying to steal a truck and he's trying to get away. At one point, he actually gets shot trying to get out of there. They shoot him up. He takes a couple bullets, but he's an Inhuman, right? So back then, they weren't quite as tough as they are considered nowadays, but yeah, make no mistake. This guy's tough as nails. So he gets shot a couple times and he can move on. In a human, they could be almost cut in half and they'll be good in an hour, just as tough at least as Captain America and heal a whole lot faster. So back to the story with the Mandroids showing up. These guys had actually wound up getting knocked out at one point because Iron Man is just like, he's had enough. He knows their weaknesses because as Tony Stark, nobody knows he's Tony Stark in this. None of the other Avengers know, but we know. We know. So Tony Stark actually created and designed these Mandroids. So he knew their weaknesses. He was having problems beating them nonetheless, but he actually pulls out his power pods from the sides of his waist belt. Those circles there. Those are actually his power pods. Pulls them out and just boom, shoots out some serious electricity at these things, knocks them the hell out. These guys. And Triton's like, hey, shut up a little bit. Don't worry about the medical attention. We kind of need your help. The Inhumans, help us, please. He's actually begging at one point. Like, all right, fine. So he goes and explains the story. Maximus the Mad, as it turns out, has been conspiring with the Kree. The Kree said, hey, if you guys are all willing to, you Inhumans are willing to, take over and beat up all the humans, I don't know if they could, but there's a chance. Black Bolt's pretty darn powerful. As long as, nobody walks up and is like, oh, you better watch out for Black Bolt. There's Maximus the Mad. Watch out for Black Bolt. If this got one word from his mouth, that's it. You're done. And give them time to rally up. There's a multiverse of madness joke there for you. But anyway, these amazing adventures 5 through 8, they really gave the backstory on all of that. Kree said, hey, you guys take over, and then boom, we're good. All right, well, you guys could be in charge of the entire Earth. You keep these humans subjugated. This is your planet at this point, and then we'll just use this as a staging station, like the Sicily of the Mediterranean of the universe for the most parts of things. Maximus Man is like, all right, that's awesome. Whenever you're ready, go report to your people, and we got a deal. But Black Bolt comes walking in. He's like, oh my God, no, how could you? And he runs in, and he actually speaks for the first time and uses his voice, because he goes after, like, punching your brother is one thing, but using your voice against him, that's another. Words are violence in freaking Black Bolt's case. So as the ship is flying off, he's trying to stop the ship by screaming, and it's uncontrolled. He doesn't know how to focus it, so it's just like that. And Maximus is standing right next to him, and that's actually how Maximus went mad. It rattled his brain, melted him for the most part, and he's just he just doesn't know anything anymore, and he's felt bad about what he did to his brother for the longest time. I know it's super weird. At the end of the day, nowadays people are so cynical. I'm cynical. It's like, yeah, but your brother's evil. F him. But think about, these are the stories that Loki and Thor have been doing for all this time, and so many others, right? The idea of Maximus the Mad and Black Bolt, the king of the Inhumans. It's a tale. It's a tale, right? Anyway, so that's pretty much the gist there. Black Bolt had, caused him to go mad, but at the same time, Black Bolt also realized that through his madness, Maximus had developed the ability to actually control other people's minds. He could wipe out their minds, cause them amnesia, cause all sorts of things to happen. So he isolated Maximus in a little tomb thing above ground and in glass and whatnot. He had food and air and whatnot, but he isolated him. The other humans didn't understand what was going on. So finally, Karnak and Gorgon work together, and they free Maximus, and then immediately he subjugates all of them, and then causes Black Bolt to lose his memory, total state of amnesia, including the idea that Black Bolt forgot that if he speaks, he could destroy an entire city or worse. So that was actually really interesting. Amazing Adventures 5 through 8. Go and check those things out. I'm not joking. Really good stories there, very suspenseful. But here it is. This is what Triton is telling them. So, I was able to escape because I realized all that crap was going on from the sea. I got the heck out of Dodge, or Adelan, at the very least, got the heck out of Adelan. So anyway, straight out of Adelan, another creature from the Black Lagoon, and stuff and caps. And anyway, so he left and he's like, I need you Avengers to help me out. They're like, yeah, okay, let's go and help out. And Vision's like, no, I vote no. Like, well, Vision, what's going on, man? You kind of getting a little emotional there, bro. You all right? No, he's not all right. He's in love with Wanda, and this chick has been kidnapped by the freaking, the bad guys, by the Kree. So Iron Man's like, listen, you need to chill out. We need to do some stuff, all right? We're not going to forget about it. It's just like, we got to go and help these guys out right now. That's a more immediate threat, I was like, no, what are you talking about? I'm not gonna. So freaking Clint, Goliath, goes against, which was like, hey, man, y'all better chills out. You know what I'm saying? And they're just like, okay, my bad. They're calming down. Anyway, so Craddock goes and uses a beam, not quite the Acephalo beam that's going to control people's minds like what Ultron 1 did to Hank Pym, but rather it's a remote control device. So these guys who are inside the 3 Mandroid outfits, they're still unconscious, but Craddock is able to control the Mandroid through like a form of remote control. So these things are back up and they're going out and they're going to start trying to kick some butt. Anyway, Vision's all sorts of tripped up and whatnot. And Captain America's like, listen, your android brain is probably able to figure this stuff out just fine. I mean, Captain America, the greatest tactician known to comic books, right? He says, Vision, your android brain is best suited to figure this out. How about you split up the teams, all right? Some of us go to help out Wanda, and some of us go to help out Black Bolt and the Inhumans, right? He says, okay, fine. So how about Captain America, you and Rick and Goliath, you guys go and try and help out the Inhumans. Meanwhile, the rest of us, okay, we're going to go and we're going to help out Wanda. So Vision is actually feeling really bad about this because he knows. He's like, and he says it, it's not just me speculating. He's like, I actually just willingly, purposefully sent the weakest Avengers to go and help out the Inhumans. Meanwhile, me, Thor, Iron Man, we're gonna go and we're gonna go after these go back after our teammates and whatnot. Anyway, they go back and they have to fight against these Mandroids. They Vision has a sense after that's over, they have the sense, listen, we got to go and we got to help out also. Like, we all just got to stick together. We got to do what we got to do. So they go back and they try to get into Adelan. Thor uses hammer as a teleportation device. They go to Adelan, but the wall is still up. Here's the part where I say it's kind of interesting. None of these other guys are able to get through the wall. Thor throws his hammer. Now, you'd figure, is his hammer throw as powerful as Black Bolt's voice? Well, if you played the Marvel Face Rip game, no, it's not. Even with unfettered might, it's not. That being said, the hammer doesn't bounce off of the wall. It actually goes through the wall and back. That is interesting. It perplexed a lot of people. There's a lot to be said about that. Black Bolt shows up and he gets rid of the freaking thing, the wall. He's, oh, and he says, hear me, oh my people. Yes, he speaks. He does it in a way that everybody can hear him, but he's not actually killing anybody. I am Black Bolt, your rightful ruler. Lay down your weapons and obey. And they, for the most part, some of them kind of do. It's a weird kind of thing, all right? His voice is able to get rid of the mind control that these guys had, that Maximus the Mad had done. But Maximus is still out there, and he still has certain people who are particularly loyal to him. So, and the Kree are there specifically. So they show up and they're trying to handle their business. For some reason, out of nowhere, maybe it's because of the voice, it kind of freaked out Maximus again. That's what I like to think. Just hearing that voice of Black Bolt again reminded and kind of gave like Maximus has PTSD, and as soon as he heard the voice again, he's like, "Oh crap, that's the thing that drove me mad." So he goes mad again. He's kind of like, right, like tears coming down his eye. He has no idea what's going on anymore. Maybe he's faking it. Who knows? Either way, I love the idea that we don't know. that's dope. So anyway, one interesting thing that happens here is that some random Kree soldier swoops in, grabs Rick, and flies him up to the ship, and they get the hell out of Adeline. Them too. It's a thing now. It's a fad. They get the hell out of there as quickly as they possibly can. So everybody's like, what the frick just happened there? Captain America's not happy with this. He's like raised a red gloves fist and boom, boom, boom. Once all this happens, the Supreme Intelligence, who's back in Hala, and he's trapped in this room, this dungeon. Like, the players are all in place. Let the final phase begin. I wonder if we're going to find out what that means. Issue number 96, still 20 cents. This is interesting because you start to see the listen, I'm saying when too much testosterone gets built up in a man, including a synthezoid, this covers what happens. And this actually does happen. In here, Vision is actually willing to kill somebody. Back in the day where comics were a bit more wholesome, all right, before the perverted terror of John Byrne, because I know there's a bunch of people are going to be so mad at me for saying that, but sorry, John Byrne was a pervert. He drew so much perversion. It is what it is. One of these days, maybe I'll do a video on it, and you guys can tell me if I'm just making this stuff up or not. But yeah, the evidence will be there. So anyway, this is probably the most famous scene on this first page of this issue for the Kree Skrull War. This is the issue that this is the panel that everybody shows whenever they're talking about the Kree Skrull War. It was actually really interesting. So they go to this, see another one of these secret locations. It's off planet. Nick Fury is there, and he's just like, "Hey, what's going on?" I guess this is like the original, not Shield. What's the thing that Abigail Brand is in charge of? Anyway, it's up there. All right, it's in outer space. Anyway, I think they call it that. So, if I forget to edit any of these, it's going to be really embarrassing. So anyway, Sword. Aha! Edit or not, it's there now. Sword. So Abigail Brand's sword. So this was the original, I guess, prototype for it. Anyway, so they go there because it's a staging station, and it turns out that Nick Fury actually has some ships, and he's a spy, so he's got some serious stuff going on. Oh, I should tell you who actually built this comic book. So who put the staples in their proper places and all that good stuff. Oh, except that it's not going to tell me, is it? Oh, that stinks. Be on one of these pages. I just don't actually have the page. Apologies, guys. Anyway, some people put together this comic book. Feel free to check it out. It's the same players for the most part. So Captain America's flying the ship. These guys are moving and shaking and trying to get to where they're going. And all of a sudden, they come across this Skree. I always do that. Whenever I talk about the Kree and the Skrull, it comes out as Skree. I guess it's better than Krull because that was a horrible movie. So... no, actually, Skrull was good. Kull was bad. So the Skrull are coming forth with their armada, and they just see one lone ship, and they're like, "What the heck is going on? Like, this is dangerous. This is not good, right? The one ship, like, nobody would be this stupid to send one ship against us." So then they start doing a quick search, and they start to realize, holy crap, there's an entire armada behind these guys, but they were cloaked. Oh my God, what do we do? Now, this whole thing is really just a, not a joke, but it's a ploy, right? This is Nick Fury. He's got some gadgets on the ship, particularly this way of making it seem on radar and to the naked eye as though there are multiple ships followed up with, whoever's out there, right? I thought that was actually pretty interesting because it actually makes the Skrulls want to turn around and go back, but the Emperor gets on. He's like, "No, don't you dare! We're too close. check again. maybe this is the deception. And it turns out that the Emperor is correct. Anybody who says that Iron Man is not an incredible character, just take a look at this particular image where he's flying out and you got the illusion of four ships with him, right? He goes out there at first by himself. He's like, I'm going to go up against this armada, dude. Let's go. This wasn't like that first of the new Guardians of the Galaxy with Rocket Raccoon making fun of the most space age version of armor that Iron Man had ever had and being like, yeah, all of your stuff is weak, Earthman. Like, we got way better tech out here in space. Like, you're Stone Age, bro. And, like, no. Stark is extremely effective in this. He's kicking some butt. They start firing some missiles at the main ship because all of these guys are in, minor ships at this point. Like, Thor, take it. Thor's like, I'm not going to start firing off little things. I'm holding my breath. I'm walking outside. And mind you, he's still got this thing about him where if he loses the hammer for 60 seconds or more, he turns back into Donald Blake. But he's still out there flinging his hammer around and whatnot because, he's Thor and he's BA. Anyway, so he goes, they just throw this stuff around. He's knocking these things out. Iron Man's out here. Vision's out here. Thor and Vision are both ripping open the hull of these ships and the Skrulls are inside. Thank God we've got our spacesuits on. These guys are fighting. It's an all-out war. Dude, just pages upon pages and panels upon pages of all this crazy fighting, and it's amazing. Every time they're about to quit, the Skrull Emperor shows up like he's Big Brother on the screen, talking about, don't you dare, these guys won't kill you, but I will. So finally, he's going after the Avengers, the Skrull Emperor, and he's like, I got your Captain Marvel right here, your buddy who you thought you could trust. Look, he's building another Omni-Wave projector for us. That's what I did. So, I was going to kill the Scarlet Witch and Brother Quicksilver. And he decided in order to save them, he's going to doom your entire human race because he don't care about you guys. I'm building this Omni-Wave projector, and I'm going to destroy the Earth, and everyone and everything on it. And there's nothing you could do about it. And they're like, what? No, he couldn't possibly betray us, could he? And they're like, well, we don't really know him. And I love this. It's the idea that, you don't just get to say, nowadays it's almost like, oh, you're a hero, so of course I could trust you. And no, there was a reason to doubt each other because everybody was new. And if you didn't show interaction in the comics, you didn't just assume that they were interacting with each other. You actually had this idea that they didn't really know each other. So we knew because we were reading all the comic books, right? But it made sense that the characters in the story didn't. So right away, the Skrulls get sent to go and, check up on him. It's like, how you doing? You almost done? And they walk in there into this bubble that he's in. And they're like, hey, what, are you ready yet? And they're like, whoa, there's some kind of an illusion here. What's going on? Well, one of the things that not Omnicron, what the heck is this thing called again? Why am I forgetting the name of this darn thing? Anyway, I just said the name of this stupid thing, the Omni-Wave projector. So one of the things that it's capable of doing is creating illusions. It's kind of like a big MacGuffin thing. You do anything, do whatever it wants, like an artifact, right? You don't actually use artifacts in the game for crying out loud, but yeah, they're giant MacGuffins. So anyway, he made an illusion of himself, and he actually pops up behind the Skrulls, and one shot, knocks them both out with one haymaker left. So anyway, he shows, and he's just like, pow, pow, pow. He's popping them all out. He's got these devices and whatnot. One of the Skrulls is trying to get away, and one of the leaders of the Skrulls, Captain America's like, nope, throws his shield. Dude winds up tripping over the shield, stepping on it the wrong way. Vision goes up, and this is the one. He just hauls, and you see it. He just hauls off, and boom, cracks him hard. Vision on a bad squat day can put 50 tons over his head. And you could tell he hauls off on this sucker. And he's not done. He grabs up and he just, boom, hits him so hard that the visor, the helmet, shatters, right? And he keeps on boom, boom, boom. And it's like, I want you to think about, most people don't actually know how to fight. Like, let's just call a spade, all right? As somebody trained in the martial arts since I was 8, most people don't know how to fight. The average way that people fight when they're, especially when they're really mad, is they'll reach up and they'll try and grab you, right? They'll try and grab you by your shirt or your collar or something like that, and then just start trying to haul off on you and hit you with their strong arm, right? This is because most people don't know how to, and you'd think it's instinctual because you watch TV a lot, but it's not at all. And I've done it with lots of people. It's like, all right, go ahead. Don't actually try and hit me, because if you hit me, I'm going to hit you back. But actually try, just stay back a little bit and actually try to, aim at somebody. And I'm, move, just like boxers, weaves and dodges and whatnot. I'm not even a professional boxer. I wouldn't even call myself an amateur boxer, but I know enough about street fighting and moving and martial arts in order to not be there where you're trying to swing. And that's not even about blocking. And it's easy to block. It's easy when you've done it for a long time, right? But your average person doesn't know how to do that. On top of that, someone who's lost their mind and goes crazy, even if they did know how to fight, sometimes it results in I just want to crush you, because they're trying to get rid of as much of that adrenaline as they possibly can. Vision has never shown himself to be particularly competent at fighting. That's something that I noticed on this, and whether it was done by accident or not, I love that he just grabs onto him and he just starts trying to haul off and wham on him. And it's not until he's gotten a couple of those good punches in that's when he lets go and just starts doom. That's like a ground and pound. Or when somebody's just, they're out of it and they're just barely standing up. Their knees are, practically buckling, but they're just able to stand. It's like, oh, I'm not going to stop. So these guys grab onto Vision and they hold him back. And this Skrull, like, he's lost teeth. His face is pulp. His eyes is shut. And yeah, he's not doing good. He's like, fine. I will tell you what's going to happen. I will tell you why we're retreating right now, because there's nothing you could do about it. They sent a ship that has a nuclear payload on it to the Earth. They're like, screw it. We're just going to blow the whole damn Earth up. We're done. We're done trying to use this as our staging ground to go after the Kree, because the Kree weren't the only ones that had that plan in place. The Skrulls want to do the exact same damn thing. They were going to do it through infiltration, but nonetheless. So they decided, let's just blow this whole thing up. Now, you might have noticed that the only Avenger who's still up in space right now is Goliath. Goliath, who has ran out of the Goliath potion. He's just on his last legs of the last dose that he had, right? This thing could go out at any moment. Captain America calls him up, is like, dude, I need you to go after this thing. Mind you, if Goliath doesn't do this, then the Earth is going to explode, and all the people on Earth, they're all dead. So he actually says to him, stop this thing from happening, even if it costs you your life. This may seem cold, this may seem callous, but I celebrate Roy Thomas for this decision to have him say this, or if it was somebody else who decided to say this, possibly Stan Lee. Stan Lee was in World War II. He was a photo guy at the time, and he was drawing maps and things like that, whatever. But, he was working on the magazine and whatnot. He didn't do a whole lot. I guess he was working on Army Times, the predecessor to it, whatever, I don't know. But anyway, he did still see some kind of combat in some way, shape, or form, I believe. I do believe he was deployed to Vietnam, so he at least has some sense of what it means to be in the military. Roy Thomas, I don't think, was ever in the military. Maybe I'm wrong. I just don't know enough about him. But I do know that Stan Lee, as an editor, would absolutely know this. I'm sure there are plenty of other editors who maybe went to Vietnam or the Korean War or something along those lines. And interesting, genuinely interesting enough here that, what do you call it? Captain America actually has to make this life or death decision. Could the Vision have made this decision, even if it means your life? I don't know. Maybe. We'd like to say yes, but at the same time, look at ChatGPT and other AI like this, Bing AI and all these other AI, right? Would they just say, go ahead and do these things? Yeah, probably not. Right? So it's interesting that they made Cap say this. And while it may seem like he's a bad guy or an anti-hero or just some kind of a jerk for saying this stuff, no. Cap knows how to make a call. And you know that he would jump on that grenade if he needed to. So this was actually one of those really great Captain America moments that is never celebrated about him. I love this about him. It's either you or the whole entire Earth. If you can't stop them, then you have to stop them even by the means of your own life. Cap knew what was on the line. And Clint, for all of his craziness and mood swings and, all that stuff, he knew himself, which is why he was like, I have no problem with that, Cap. Here I go. This was actually a really cool moment, and I loved it. But anyway, he shows up there. He blows through the freaking hull of the ship, and he jumps in. There's at least 4 Skrull in here against Clint, and Clint doesn't have any more of his grow rays. He doesn't have a bow. He's got nothing, no armor, nothing against at least 4 Skrulls, and they just leave it at that. Man. Ronan at one point goes and says, "Progeny of a demented Callet," and he's talking about these the Kree and all this nonsense, right? It's funny. Callet, I actually had to look that one up because I'd forgotten. This is actually one of the insults that they would use for some of the green people, the Green Martians on John Carter of Mars. So if you never read that, or at the very least never seen the movie, I don't remember if they actually said Callet in the movie. I don't even remember how the movie ended. It just really wasn't as good as the books, and I just kind of dozed off while watching it or just left, whatever. Anyway, I don't remember the ending of that particular movie, but I remember the original book. It was really good, and it's just funny that they actually used that term in here. Roy Thomas was an avid reader. Conan, the Star Wars stuff, anything he get his hands on, he read it. The Elric of Melniboné, he read all of this stuff. So I know that he read John Carter from Mars and was very inspired by it. So I love that he used that term. That was really cool that he did that. Anyway, so he sees these Kree show up, and they're just like, yeah, look, we caught this guy, Rick. Like, what? You caught this guy? Of all you didn't catch Mar-vell, you didn't catch any of the Avengers, you caught this guy. What the heck am I gonna do with this guy? The Kree is like, listen, I don't know why. Something just came over me. It was a momentary impulse. I just went and grabbed him. Didn't understand why I did it. You'll find out later. So there's this big thing. You get to see that Rick isn't a pushover. He's weak compared to Ronan, especially, or any Kree. He's not strong compared to them, but he's not a pushover. He goes and snatches a stun staff out of one of their hands and hits Ronan with it. Ronan blocks with his hammer and breaks the freaking staff. And it's just like, Ronan's like, wham! Actually, he doesn't backhand him. He front slaps him. He just fly out, just smacks him. Rick goes flying. It looks like he dislocates his shoulder. This dude gets jacked. He's like, listen, I'm going to make you my manservant. I'm going to make you a body slave. You're going to go everywhere I go, and I need you to be a little bit defiant, but at the same time also understand that you don't have any chance. I need to break you. That's what I need to do. And so he takes Rick out, and he says, congratulations, be pleased. You're going to be the last of the humans still alive after I wipe out your entire race. And he shows this huge armada in front of him. It's like, your humans will either be pacified or pulverized. You guys are done, because I am going to, why don't you just let the green guys have it? Lock, stock, and population bomb, right? All of this stuff. I love it. And at one point, Rick's just like, and he goes and tries to run. Ronan isn't having it. He goes and he blasts Rick with one of his hammer blasts, right? The universal nullifier. What's it called? The universal nullifier? Anyway, it's not the ultimate nullifier. Anyway, the universal. It's a universal weapon. Anyway, he goes and he boom blasts him. It looks like the blast actually goes right through him, right? like a spirit bomb of some sort. I'm not gonna ever bow to you, man. So you're gonna have to kill me. That's the only thing you can do. What are you gonna do about that, huh? Huh? Well, so the next thing you see, he just gets thrown in a cell. And they think so little of him that they throw him in the same cell as the Supreme Intelligence. That's where it's funny. So at this point, the Supreme Intelligence goes and starts explaining everything to Rick. And he's like, listen, ever since I got captured, I realized that there's a lot of stuff I had to do. I'm the one who made sure that Captain Mar-vell didn't know that that Carol Danvers imitation who showed up, the Super-Skrull. I made sure that he didn't realize it was a Super-Skrull until it was, too late, because I needed him to be able to get make his way here. He wasn't going to come here otherwise, right? I needed him to do the things he was going to do. I influenced the suggestion in the mind of that one Kree soldier who kidnapped you and brought you up here. I made sure I put you in place in every single place that I need you to go in, and I'm about to put you in another place right now. And I hope that you'll survive this because it's important. But here you go, bud. Sorry. Hope to see you again. He sends him through a dimensional aperture that sends him back into the negative zone. And right over his shoulder, it's a blink and you miss it. There's Annihilus. Effing terrifying. That's the end of this issue. So here we come across, got to make this thing load, of course, because the issue number 97, still 20 cents. And here's where you remember I told you about Rick thinking about all those old comic book characters, including Captain America and Namor. That stuff is actually going to come into play here. They're all actually on the cover of this stuff. So this issue is called Godhood's End. At last, the world-shattering windup of the Skrull Kree intergalactic war, served up for you by Stan Lee, Roy Thomas, John Buscema back on art, Tom Palmer on ink, Sam Rosen on letters, and Neil Adams as a consultant. I'm not sure what that means. I wish I remembered that it said that, and I could have asked him when I interviewed Neil. Man's resting in peace right now, but yeah. Wow, I really would have liked to know what he meant, what was meant by that. Anyway, quick recap of everything that's going on here right now. And Annihilus is like, listen, at the end of the day, I remember you were in that room. You were the one that I followed in while you're back. Now I'm just going to straight up kill you because screw all of you. And somehow Rick winds up using a psychic blast from his mind and blasts Annihilus. This ridiculous problem. Listen, Ronan versus Annihilus, Ronan doesn't stand a chance. Okay? Ronan versus Annihilus is like Rick Jones versus Ronan. You don't stand a chance. That's how powerful Annihilus is. And Rick Jones just bodied Annihilus. He's using this psychic blast to just, waffle him. You see all these guys are all fighting back and whatnot. Captain Mar-vell is still trying to finish the Omni-Wave projector. He's putting it together and he finishes it, and then suddenly he gets this idea. He's like, wait a second, Rick Jones is back in the negative zone. Oh no! He's like, oh, for crying out loud. Now I see now what I should always have known. The Omni-Wave is too dangerous to be employed by anyone. Therefore, as I destroyed it before, so shall I again. So Captain Mar-vell was building this Omni-Wave projector the whole time, and just like he destroyed the first one, now he's going to destroy this one too. Just as it was about finished or whatever. He's just realizing, he's like, I know that it seems like, this is just too much. So he spent the whole time just building and destroying Omni-Wave projectors? Yes, he did. But I also want you to think about this. This is not too far removed from World War II. These were World War II veterans who are making this. The Omni-Wave projector essentially is their version of the atomic bomb, right? So the idea that, yes, we made it, but we should have also just destroyed it, right? Like, this is not the way that we're supposed to be. It's a stance. It's an opinion. It's hippies. So you look at Roy Thomas and tell me this dude don't look like a hippie, all right? Anyway, it is what it is. So Rick is able to make it so that he himself is brought back in front of the Supreme Intelligence. Supreme Intelligence, make sure this happens. And Supreme Intelligence says, listen, one of these days your race will prove itself worthy, and you'll be able to do these kinds of things that you just did. He's like, whoa, what are you talking about exactly? He's like, so Supreme Intelligence explains, like, listen, the human race is capable of so much. Eventually you'll be able to evolve that all of you will be able to do what you just did. A psychic wave, a psychic blast, more power, powerful enough to take down even an Eternal. Remember, that's what the Eternals were. They were supposed to be the epitome of the human race at that particular moment. But humans were supposed to be able to evolve, eventually even to be able to surpass even what the Eternals were. It seems like a counterbalance to things, right? But it's not, actually, because humans over time being able to evolve past what the original greatest potential for a human could have been, it's not that far beyond an understanding, right? Behind a comprehension of what that means. Right now, I'm capable of this, but maybe in 10 more years, I'm capable of this. Will I ever reach the ultimate aspect of what a human can be? Probably not, right? It's kind of Nietzschean, right? We will never attain our fullest potential. It's impossible. At some point, I'm going to have to sleep. And by sleeping, I'm wasting time. You know what I'm saying? Even though there's a conundrum because I need to sleep anyway. So, sorry, too much with philosophy in here, right? Anyway, I thought that this was actually a beautiful thing, that Rick, for just a few moments, got to see what it was like, what humans would eventually be. And he still has his power for a minute. And Ronan realizes what has happened. And he's like, okay, man, you guys are coming in. You guys are out there conspiring with each other. Not a problem. I'm sending my people in, and we're gonna kick all your sorry butts. And the Supreme Intelligence is like, Rick, you better do something, or we're both dead. He's like, okay, I've got an idea. This is the best I could do. And he thinks of all those heroes, those comic book heroes, including Captain America and Namor. And Captain America's actually got that old school shield, not the heater shield, but the messed up colors on the shield. They did that on purpose. They had to have, right? And I love it. And they go and they start kicking butt. There's the Patriot. There's the original Human Torch, right? Here's something. There's a nice little bit of trivia that I'm probably never going to point out to people, but who knows? This might be the only time I ever really get into it. But there's a character in here, one of these old school comic book characters in the comic books. So a comic book in a comic book. Character called the Vision. He's one of the Golden Age Avengers. And he was actually one of the absolute favorites of Roy Thomas. He loved this character, the Vision, which is why when he created the Vision, he named him the Vision. He made him look very similar to the Vision, made him very different, like the Vision was, and named him the Vision also. Vision had all these incredible powers, like that all around evolved around smoke. He's from an alien race where as long as you have some kind of smoke coming out of it, you can teleport wherever you need to teleport. He was super powerful. He could take a laser blast, as you can see here, from Kree, and he was strong and all sorts of things that he could do, right? As long as he made smoke coming out of him, he was going to be okay. This guy gets 5 whole panels devoted to him where he's talking while he's teleporting and doing all this crazy stuff. The Blazing Skull gets 1 picture. Finn gets 1 lousy picture. You don't even get to see his face. What do you call it? Is this the Patriot again? Or no, the Angel. Angel only gets 2 panels in here, and that's so sad because Angel was actually one of my favorite of the Golden Age comic book heroes of comic books. I loved Angel. Anyway, this is the original Angel. Not Warren Worthington III. So really cool stuff here. And again, it's very cool that because Roy Thomas wanted to bring in the Angel, like, no, let's not do that, but feel free to create a new character, right? Like, okay, fine, so be it. So he created his own character, and instead of phasing, he would do this, density manipulation thing. Still had that kind of royal regal aspect about him. And honestly, it's probably better that he'd create a new character anyway. But he actually got to write and have some people draw the original vision again, which I'm just saying, I'm glad that Mr. Thomas got to do that. That is very cool that he got that honor of being able to write his favorite character, even if just for 5 or so panels. That's really cool. And he got him on a cover of this particular comic book. So the Avengers are fighting back hard. They're doing the best they can. The Kree and the Skrull both wind up getting routed. They can't continue on with this fight anymore. And Rick Jones has one last blast of sorts because he sees Craddock. And he realizes that Craddock was actually a Skrull. So the real Craddock, this Skrull infiltrated. So, remember I said that there was the original 4 Skrulls that showed up on Earth in Fantastic Four #2. 3 of them were tricked into transforming into cows, the most powerful creatures on Earth. And then Reed caused them to have amnesia. They lost their memory, right? So they got stuck there. But one of the Skrulls got away. This was that 4th Skrull. He went off and he found Craddock, and he's just like, hey, this guy's got a lot of influence. Let me actually utilize some of that influence. And they always use gadgets, just like I told you about that anti-grav device that the one Skrull used to make it so it seemed like he was as strong as the Thing. Well, this guy wound up using a voice pattern hypnosis thing with his voice. So when he talked to people, he actually drove them into a frenzy. He made them believe the things he was saying. Interesting. I'm just saying that's kind of interesting. So you actually got to find out in the pages of the Avengers what happened to that 4th Skrull. And he was, once the people realized that he was a Skrull, they went after him and they killed him. So he actually got killed by an angry mob. Go figure. The mob that he riled up only wound up turning against him. At this point, the Supreme Intelligence goes and explains how for untold eons, Skrull and Kree have stalked the cosmic corridors like twin races of malevolent gods, never knowing that each of their star-spanning clans has reached a dead end. Live a billion years, neither will ever advance one more rung up the ladder of evolution. Now they can but snarl at each other across the sea of space, hating both each other and the human race, which they subconsciously sense to be their ultimate superiors. Rick winds up passing out of this, but yes, it is revealed here that the Kree and the Skrull will never evolve past the ladder, that the particular rung on the evolutionary ladder that they're on now. They're incapable of evolving any further. And they also say that these guys have been fighting for millennia and whatnot. And in several issues, they're actually going to reveal, who started that battle, why it happened, all that good stuff. It involves the blue area of the moon, but not the X-Men. I know, interesting, right? Anyhow, so all of that is actually going to happen at some point soon in the Avengers comic books. We'll get to it, guys. Calm down. We'll get to it. In the meantime, there is an issue of the X-Men that actually explains why Chris Claremont, mini genius that he is, right? He had good people around him too. Make no mistake about it. He had the best editors around him. But Chris Claremont wrote this one story. It's actually in an annual, X-Men annual number 11. Yeah, this totally awesome one. I remember looking, when I first saw it, I was like, this is the weirdest picture of Sabretooth I've ever seen. But I was also a real little kid when this came out. So it is what it is. Anyway, I remember seeing this. I was like, this is amazing. I got to read it. And by the end of the comic book, I was actually in tears, right? It wasn't like an ugly cry. I was actually in tears because it was probably the best issue that showed Wolverine to be a champion ever. Feel free to go and read this one issue of a comic book. I will actually hope to get to this soon and talk about it myself because it's an incredible issue. I reread it in the middle of, or actually as soon as I was finished reading this, I actually reread it just for the sake of rereading it because it was such an incredible issue. But they actually give the explanation as to why the Kree and the Skrull and multiple other races in the cosmos will never evolve any further, and why humans and mutants can. Very interesting issue. Anyway, guys, so Rick winds up getting himself knocked out because he just used too much of a power that he wasn't ready to actually use yet. The Supreme Intelligence does one more burst of energy because this guy's weak right now. He's been in prison for so long. One last burst of energy to open up a dimensional rift to allow the Avengers to come in. They see Rick laying there, and Captain Marvel's like, oh no. And it's like, listen, here's the deal. You're going to have to rebond with Rick in a very different way now, but you're going to have to rebond with Rick. It's like, oh, but I just finally got my freedom. And now you're telling me I got to give my full life force to this guy? So I'm going to be a prisoner forever? It's like, well, then perhaps you have helped to doom Rick Jones after all. So guilt trip. Captain Marvel's like, you're right, Supremer. Allow me but a moment for leave taking. The last thoughts that he's going to have for the most part as a free man. This is great because it really shows that heroes do what they've got to do. Now, Captain America couldn't have done this. Thor couldn't have done this. Nobody else could have done it. Thor, especially, I imagine, because he's already got the Donald Blake thing going, right? Anyway, so Captain Marvel can do this because he's already had this bond with Rick Jones. So there's that. Anyway, and plus the Supreme Intelligence, maybe the Supreme Intelligence was lying. Because he's the one who made it so that these guys would wind up bonding in the first place. Supreme Intelligence got his own thing. He's got his side hustles going on. Anyway, so he actually takes two moments. Captain Marvel, one to contemplate his race, the Kree, because he is a man of the Kree. He's always in his comic books, minimum once each comic book, a man of the Kree. Oh, man of the Kree. Like that was his thing. And then he also stops and he reflects not on Una, but rather on Annihilus. I think that's how you pronounce her name. I don't know. It's a freaking comic book. Who is the daughter of the Skrull leader, the Skrull Emperor. This is the one that the Super-Skrull actually wanted to marry in order for him to be able to take over. Captain Marvel, a Kree, actually stopped and contemplated Annihilus, the daughter of the Emperor, the heir apparent possibly for the Skrull Empire. That is pretty interesting to me. I wonder if they talk about this further at some point. Either way, she's going to die when Galactus goes and consumes the planet, the Skrull throne world. She's actually on the throne world, and she winds up dying when Galactus does that, and then goes into his food torpor. His belly is full, the body must rest. Anyway, it just takes those 2 minutes to contemplate those two things, and then he enters Rick Jones, gives up his life force, kind of, in order to move on. Rick kind of wakes up and it's like, holy crap, what's going on here? And they bring him back, and the real Craddock is there, and he's like, I don't know what happened, guys, but I hope that everything's cool. He's going to go back and live his life, and everybody's going to go on and live their life. And they stop and they contemplate for a moment. For when all Avengers living were summoned into one unspeakably powerful presence, there was one that did not appear, one alone, the Avenger called Goliath. Oh crap. Now, obviously, this is a comic book from back in like 1971 or whatever. So, yes, obviously he came back. He actually winds up coming back in the next issue, but it's cool the way that he comes back because he's no longer Goliath. I told you issue number 66, The Avengers, was the first time he appeared as Goliath. Well, this is actually the last appearance that he has as Goliath. Not really. He kind of switches things up later on, but as his initial original run as Goliath, this was actually his last appearance. He goes back to being Hawkeye in the next issue. You want to know how that happens? Feel free to pick up a comic book and read on your own after you actually read this whole thing for your own, because I didn't give you every single detail that happens in this story. I gave you plenty, though. So you now know. If you didn't know before, now you know. Knowing is half the battle, G.I. Joe. You now know the story of the Kree Skrull War, the original, right? Read the actual stories. Go back and read the comic books. Get the omnibus if you want to. Check it out on the Mar-vell app. I don't care how you get it. I really don't. Just go and check out the Kree Skrull War. read them for yourself. See how comic books were written back in the day. See the way that these stories and the characters, the emotions, how all of these things came into play back in the day. It was amazing. You know what else is amazing? That like button. I'm just saying. Also consider watching an ad when the ads actually go up. Since I don't actually have ads on this until maybe like mid-July, consider checking out the Kickstarter, guys. All right. I will talk to you later. I will be bringing you more of these spotlights on story. Hopefully, I'm going to have a little bit more time to do those things right now. We'll talk to you guys later. Professor Bell, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.